At this time, I'd like to call the budget work session to order on this May 13th. Would you please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we invite you into this room today as we work on our budget and just ask that you lead us and guide us and give us your wisdom in coming up with a budget that will benefit all the citizens in Nashville. Amen. Report the water sewer rate study.
Well, just before we get to that, so you guys don't get overwhelmed with what's before you as far as paper, I just want to, the agenda that we have here, there are a number of policy attachments here that we're required to adopt for our CDBG Neighborhood Revitalization Project. Yeah.
So we'll
And-
just go through the.
Yes.
And then after that, we'll have our guests here this morning go through the rate study. And then I had passed out, and you'll find the draft budget thus far is this. It's stapled. The front 6 pages are revenue, the remaining pages are expenses. The back page is a sheet showing what our tax rate has been and what it's brought in for taxable or revenue for the last several years. Lily, what did you hand out?
I handed out the last salary comparison I did for Nightingale, Roseville, Wake Forest, and Zebulon, and also what our current salary schedule is.
This.
Yes, correct.
And Tressa, you handed something out.
I handed out a statement of revenue versus expenditures.
And it looks like this, it's smaller printed stuff. Not that we're gonna go over, this is just again for reference information. So. All right, Mayor and Council, if you're ready, we'll turn it over to Hope. And she can explain,
Well,
You want to knock mine out first, then there?
say that again,
I'm
Sean.
still gonna go the way we said, go ahead and knock mine out first, CDBG stuff, then
Oh.
turn it over there.
Do you want to do the CDBG policies first? So
It don't take me too long.
okay, that'd be fine.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you, School of Government, for allowing me to come before you. Mayor and Council, Ben Jones, our consultant, that is doing everything to follow the consultant for our grant that we were awarded, $950,000. Needs us to sign all these documents. 2 or more resolution. 1 is an ordinance for everything that goes on file. It's your equal employment procurement plan, the fair housing plan, Section 3 plan, Section 504 grievance procedure, language access plan, signatory forms and certification, the signatory resolution, anti-displacement relocation plan, the citizen participation plan, excessive force policy, the program policy, code of conduct, grant program ordinance, and optional coverage relocation plan. All this stuff must be submitted by March 23rd.
May.
May 23rd, excuse me, May 23rd. Ben said if we could get all this done today, he could get it all submitted to Raleigh to keep everything on track with the grant. And all this paperwork is pretty much paperwork you would sign if you are a new hire or if you're going to work in the program, as far as all the stuff we'll have to do. So we just need a motion and a second to give the mayor and the council authorization to sign it, and then we'll get the mayor offline to get everything signed.
Do I hear a motion that we approve and adopt these 14 documents required for the grant and the signatures? Is there a second?
Second, but I should have seen it before 5 minutes ago.
Well, we did. So do you second? All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Well, every time we do the
Well, they're good.
CDBG project, those are the same.
Yeah.
I don't know why we have to redo them. We just did them 2 years ago with our last project.
Right. They just gotta keep going on up.
So Randy, you've also gone through all these, everything's in order.
On those,
Because we haven't had time to go through them.
it is. It's,
like
in order to get,
formality.
right, in order to get the federal money, you have to assure and attest that you're going to follow all those federal policies. You're not going to discriminate against contractors. We're going to follow fair housing standards, the whole gauntlet.
Then we do this for the fire station too, also.
Some of them,
Some of them.
there's a couple extra ones in here.
We'll spend everything.
Our consultant did everything for us. We just had to bring it to council.
Okay.
Okay, then, with that all done, are you ready for Hope? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's go.
Well, hi everyone. Thanks so much for having us. And I just have to say right off the bat, thank you for your flexibility. You can see I was supposed to be here with my colleague Amanda last week, and I got whatever spring cold is kind of running around. So I just thought I would not make it through a late night driving out to Nashville. So thanks again for your flexibility and allowing us to be here today instead. My name's Hope Thompson. I work as a senior project director at the School of Government. And I'm going to talk a little bit about your water and wastewater funds and what we've been working with staff on for the past couple of months. We have not done what we call a true rate study, and I'm happy to talk through why. That's something that we're going to keep working on, but we have wanted to prepare some analyses to assist you all in your budget season because we know that this is the time to make some decisions. So we'll just kind of jump in. If you're not familiar with the School of Government, we are based at UNC Chapel Hill. I am a double Tar Heel, so go Heels. And we work across the state with all 100 counties and the many municipalities and other forms of local government to help them in decision making. We have these core values of nonpartisanship, policy neutrality, and responsiveness, which basically means we leave the decisions at the local level, but we're here to support you, give you information, and we work with a lot of attorneys. So people can interpret the general statutes and case law to tell you what local governments are and aren't allowed to do. Amanda and I are not attorneys, but we work very closely with them, and so we kind of take what their interpretations are and we can help, interpret those further or guide local governments to those. Specifically, we work at the Environmental Finance Center, and so we specialize in water and wastewater services, dabbling a bit in stormwater as well. But there's, so many things that local governments do, and this is just the one piece that we specialize in. So if you have other questions about housing or planning or things of that nature, we can point you to someone else at the school. But if it's water and wastewater finance focused, then that is our focus. And we have a couple of different areas that we work in. Again, water, wastewater finance, stormwater finance, and then we also talk about affordability and partnerships or regionalization efforts. We do this by developing free database tools that other folks can use on their own. We can also assist you in using those tools, so doing community assistance. We have applied research, so we do surveys and put out reports about what the trends are in North Carolina. And then we also do trainings and workshops at the school, which I believe is how we got connected with Tressa. Tressa came to one of our workshops a couple of years ago. And that's me in my former life as a museum educator. If you've ever been to Moorhead Planetarium and Science Center, that's where I used to work. And so I just like to put this up to tell you a little bit about my background. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a finance officer, but I have this kind of varied background in chemistry, risk management, public health, and I used to work with 5-year-olds, and I had a robot as a coworker. So there's no bad questions. I've heard it all before. That's what we're here for, is to take your questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. So the first thing I want to do is some level setting for utility management. Just make sure that we have the same language and we're coming with the same set of assumptions. Then we're going to walk through some of the analyses that we did for Nashville. We're happy to provide these tools to your staff if you want to dig into them. I know some people want to see the numbers and they want to play around themselves, so that's definitely something we offer. And we did do a bill comparison of potential rate strategies that you all could consider. And I say potential because, again, we are policy neutral. So if none of those strategies are to your liking, we're not going to recommend one of this is what we think is the best fit, or this is going to certainly do these things, but we can kind of walk through what the bill impacts would be on customers. And if you want to talk about pros and cons, then we can try to do that as well. And then that obviously will stay as long as you'd like for questions, discussion, etc. Any questions before we jump in? Okay. So utility management, I'll kind of go quickly through this part, but we like to include this as it's the bread and butter of what we teach to all utilities across the state, whether we're working 1 or 2 on many, one-on-one, or in front of a huge classroom of people, right? And so water and wastewater utilities provide these core services. They're protecting public health, environmental health. It's a service that everybody in the community needs, so it's not the same as any other business enterprise where you can kind of opt in or opt out if that's not a product that you're interested in. But at the same time, you are expected to be a public enterprise and to run as a business. And so often as decision makers, you're challenged because you have to kind of take off that, we call it a hat, general fund hat, and put on that business enterprise hat of how are you going to run this enterprise sufficiently and financially effectively into the future. And so what does that mean to be a public enterprise? It just basically means that you're self-sufficient, so your revenues in are covering your expenditures out, and that you're avoiding or minimizing transfers unless those transfers are justified. So for example, if you're making a transfer to cover staff time to the general fund because that's where salaries are paid out of and they support the utility fund, that would be a justifiable transfer. There are some restrictions on transfers. Mostly transfers, I believe it's out of the enterprise fund, and we can follow up on those if you need guidance there. But that's the basics, is revenues coming in, cover expenses going out, and you're kind of keeping the enterprise fund as insulated as possible. What do we mean when we say costs and expenses? Again, this is just level setting, so we have all the same language. There's 3 types of costs essentially. There's your daily operations and maintenance. There's your capital costs. What do you need to rehab and replace infrastructure? And then if you're using debt as a tool to pay for infrastructure, you also have debt service. So likely related to capital costs as well, but just kind of a different flavor of that. And then in terms of revenues, you have 2 main kinds of revenues. You have income that's coming from charges and fees for service from your users. There's kind of a slate of things you can charge for, but the main one is what are they paying on their water and wastewater bill? And then you can also have debt money from loans or bonds that are coming in to provide that upfront capital, and that's a source of revenue as well. The kind of third category that we often dabble in are reserve funds, so money that you're setting aside, right? And that's kind of whatever is remaining between those revenues and expenses and things that you want to do to plan for the future, reduce risk. We get a question a lot of the time, which is what's the appropriate amount to have in reserves? It's really up to you all, depending on what you think, and with your staff and with your experts here, what do you think is most appropriate for what you want to do? So that could be an amount to rehab your most critical piece of equipment, or it could be an amount to plan for a larger capital improvement in the future. There are some restrictions from the state or some things that the state looks at, which we'll talk about a little bit later, about cash that they want you to have on hand as well. But in terms of deeper reserve planning, that's ultimately a personal decision, or personal to each unit. And if you feel like, well, that's simple on paper, but harder in practice, you're not alone. So this is where a little bit of our applied research comes in. And what this graph is showing, this was prepared by our research director. Basically, that brown line that's kind of going across the bottom there, or right in the middle, that's the consumer price index. So inflation for kind of the basket of goods and services that we're all paying for, kind of averaged. But the orange and the pink lines are representing utility costs. So construction costs in orange and operations and management costs in pink. And this is year over year change. And so we can see that maybe right before 2020, we started to see a little bit of an increase in those utility focused costs, that their year over year change was higher than the year over year change for those general consumer goods. And then we see this kind of tremendous spiking in utility focused costs immediately following the pandemic.
I'm sorry. Now, what is this graph? Is this us, or is this the state, or is this?
This is using, so it's derived from these indices that are nationwide. So this is not you. This is just kind of showing if you felt this pinch, or if you're wondering why are things getting more expensive, it's a systemic problem. And so since we see that kind of spike without, especially with the orange line, without like a characteristic, dip that's of the same magnitude, costs have gone up and they've stayed high. They haven't come back down. At the same time, funds are not guaranteed to continue to cover the cost of operations, but mostly of capital, right? Mostly of those construction projects. And so what this is showing, this graph is from Brookings Metro. It's showing from the 70s through 2023, the state and local share of total U.S. public infrastructure spending. And basically we're seeing that the state and local share is growing over time. right? So that means less money from the federal government for these infrastructure projects. There has certainly been an influx of federal funds in the past couple of years. So if you all got ARPA funds, or if you were able to access any of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act funding, there's kind of been this flood, pardon the water pun, of funding from the federal government, but a lot of that is ending. And so we're anticipating that we're going to start feeling a lot more pinched in what's available from the state, and that will be from the state that comes from the federal government. So if it's more on the local share, then people ask, well, that means it's coming from our ratepayers, and so what's the right rate to set? And again, this is just so that you don't feel alone. This is a tricky question to answer. And so what this graph is showing, this is from data that we've collected from North Carolina utilities. Basically, everyone above the purple line has revenues over their expenses. So they're bringing in more money than they're sending out. Everyone below the line has revenues less than expenses. And along the axis on the bottom is the residential water bill at 6,000 gallons. So there's no real trend here, right? There's no magic bill amount that is always going to give you revenues more than expenses. Every utility is really different. Every utility has their own kind of operations maintenance costs, capital improvements that they need to make, and that's what makes this rate setting really difficult, is because there's no one right way to do it. It's really specific to you all. Okay. So when we're talking about rate setting, we're talking about achieving full cost recovery. And that is this idea that we're going to cover all of the costs today and into the future. So that means operating, technical, management, software, planning, all of the costs, not just what does it take to run the system today, but what are all of the activities that we need to do so that we can run it in a year, 5 years, and 10 years. So now and into the future, and then this is the kicker, with no or minimal reliance on grants. And then one of the reasons that provision is in there, and this is what we're hearing from the state. We work really closely with the state Division of Water Infrastructure. There's just not as much grant money as there is need for grant money in this state. And so when we have utilities that are planning purely on, we'll do all of our capital projects on grants, it's just a plan that is set up to not be successful in the long term. That does not mean don't apply for grants, don't use grants. They're a great tool if you can access them. But in terms of planning, we want no to minimal reliance on grants. So basically, what are we doing? You all are in that kind of yellow bubble, decision making to reach your utility goals, and that bubble is always moving along. You're kind of always in that bubble where you're looking back to see how you've been financially performing, and then you're trying to look forward and to set your rates accordingly to meet those goals. Another challenge that you might be facing are all of these kind of unpredictable, unmanageable things that can happen. So staff turnover, equipment that fails, your population changing, whether it's declining or increasing, new regulations that you might have to meet, whether from the state or federal level, cost of inflation, or changes in the weather that can affect people's water use. So all of this is just to say, if you feel like it's frustrating or hard, you're not alone. It is. It's a very challenging task. Any questions kind of about that level setting? Okay. So let's talk about what we've done for Nashville so far. Where we always start is let's understand where your utility is today and where you've been so that we can see the progress. And so we call this a financial health checkup. It's just like if you go to the doctor and you have your regular health checkup with the doctor, your annual physical. They're going to check the same things, and they're comparing those readings on your body to some standards of, this is a range that we would expect for someone of your age. This is, something that maybe is a point of concern. These are some things you could do. It's very similar. We're just looking at your utility fund, right? So we use 5 years of audited financial data, and we're looking at key performance indicators. So we're using standard calculations to calculate a number that is specific to Nashville. And then we're comparing that to some benchmarks that are set either by kind of industry standards or that we're just kind of suggesting as a starting place. There are very similar benchmarks that are set by the local government commission. And we can speak a little bit about those. So far, nothing is jumping out to me as something that the LGC would be concerned about, often because our benchmarks are higher than theirs. So the LGC sets benchmarks to catch people who they're really worried that their proprietary fund is not performing. And so they want to be set it appropriately so that they're catching kind of the units with most concern. So I'm going to show a summary. I'm happy to walk through these. But basically, we calculate 6 indicators. And what I've done is kind of put the non-utility nerd speak of what these mean on the right-hand side of the slide. And you can see if you're blue, you're above our indicator, which again is often quite conservative, especially compared to the LGC. And if you're red, you're below our indicator. So looking at this holistically, you all are performing above the recommended starting points in 5 of the 6 indicators. And the only one that you're not is percent of capital assets depreciated. This is you.
Okay.
Yeah, now everything is you. So the only one where you're below our recommendation is percent of capital assets depreciated. And that's not uncommon. There's a lot of folks have aging systems where they need more capital investment, and you're always going to have depreciation on your system. If you have, a capital improvement plan, you're working with your utility folks to make those investments, and this is less of a concern. For me, it's more of a flag when people aren't considering any capital investments at all. This is a flag to say that it's time to start doing that. In terms of your other things that we have here, though, so operating ratio, that's a measure of self-sufficiency and cost recovery. You all are above the target there. Debt service coverage ratio, did you generate enough revenues to cover costs of operating as well as your debt? And that's really important. If you are hoping to leverage debt in the future, lenders want to see, do you have a cushion to be able to make those debt payments, even if revenues fluctuate? Quick ratio is a measure of your liquidity. So do you have enough cash on hand to be able to pay your bills at the end of the year? And then days cash on hand, that's the one that I mentioned that LGC also looks at. That's basically a measure of resiliency. So if all the payments stop coming in, are you able to keep the lights on and for how long? How much money do you have to kind of fill gaps and deal with unintended events?
How many days do we have?
That's a great question. So let's look at what it looks like, because we can see some of your progress that you've made. We set our target at 6 months. That is editable because some utilities want more. LGC flags at 2 months. A lot of folks I talk to say, ooh, only 60 days. That doesn't really feel like enough. But that's what LGC sets as that target for when they'll start to flag something's wrong. One of the reasons I like our tool a lot is it doesn't just give a snapshot, it shows you your progress over time. And so I know those lines are kind of faint, but basically those dotted lines are showing where we have set the initial targets. Again, those are editable if you want something more conservative or more protective. But you can see that Nashville has made some improvements, especially from 21 to 22. You can see the operating ratio, you went from not recovering costs to recovering costs, and you've maintained that over time. Quick ratio has stayed healthy above the target of 2, basically $2 of cash for every dollar of liabilities that you have. Days cash on hand has risen from 2021, it looks like you had less than 50, to now you have, I think that's around 280, 290. So what's that in months? I don't know, but many months of cash on hand. And same thing with debt service coverage ratio. That could be due to not having as much debt as you did before, but also increasing revenues is going to help with debt service coverage ratio. And then percent of capital assets depreciated, that's also improved a little bit if you made some capital improvements from 21 to 22. That number has improved a bit as well.
But we're below the bar on that one.
You are, yeah, you are. So the bar for that is percent of capital assets depreciated at 35%. Basically, a third of your system has lost its useful life, is how we interpret that. You all are at about 50%, so about half of your system has lost its useful life. Depreciation is really tricky. It's an accounting term for a physical problem, but it is also like a real fact. Like things get old, things wear out, things become obsolete. And your utility staff can speak better to that like physical condition because their assessment is going to be more precise than an auditor's assessment of depreciation. Any questions here? And this is something I think we did update it with the most recent year of audit. Anytime there's another year, it's easy to update it, whether you all want to do it yourself. We're happy to help staff navigate the tool, or you can call us again and we'll help you update it as well. Okay, so the next thing that we did, so we have been working on a rates analysis with your staff. They've been incredibly helpful. Like I said, every utility is really unique. So even though Amanda and I have worked with many sets of billing data at this point, there's always unique little wrinkles. And so the issue that we're having is that what we want to do is look really discreetly at the data and be able to project your revenues from your customer usage. If we can't project in a way that is reflective of what you've observed in the past, there's a problem. And that's no longer an effective decision-making tool. So that is what happened, is we're over-projecting what you all have observed. And so we need to spend more time understanding what is happening in the data so that we can basically make a model that's going to work for decision-making. So we're not really presenting a true rates analysis today where we're going to say, if you set this rate, this is what we would anticipate in terms of revenues. But we are going to talk about your cost versus revenues and some of the trends that we've seen. And then I'm going to show you the options for if you take on certain rates, what the impact would be on customer bills. So the piece that's going to be missing is if you take on this rate, what would a projected revenue be? So I just want to lay that out before we even go further.
So is that coming in the future?
That's something we're going to continue to work on with the staff, yeah. It's unfortunately very time intensive. And so when we were seeing that the issue was not going to be resolved, we kind of wanted to pivot a bit and be able to produce something that you'd be able to use in this budget cycle still. Okay. So we're calling it for now a cost versus revenues tool. I reserve the right to change that name at some point for something that's maybe a bit more descriptive. But basically, we're using your historic data on expenses and revenues to calculate trend lines and then project some possible scenarios. Remember I showed that graphic of all those like splatters of how things can change? We're trying to read the tea leaves, which is basically impossible in this industry. And that's why we encourage people to revisit this year after year and see what has changed, what new things are coming down the line that you need to respond to. But we can try. We can try to look forward and say, if things stay the same, if we continue on this path, what would we expect to see? And so we're including your current debt schedule. We can include a capital improvement plan, and we were given some capital improvement numbers from staff. We calculated a really moderate expense projection for you all, year-over-year expense changes of only 0.8%. That's incredibly low, especially compared to general inflation numbers, that spiky graph that I showed you. So in these examples, I'm using a 3% increase instead of the 0.8. I think that's more realistic. We're also comparing two revenue projections. So one that is based on the year-over-year changes in revenue that you've seen, that's about 1.83%. And then one that models no change in revenue. And that's because revenue changes only come if you bring on more customers or you do a rate increase. And a rate increase that's not responsive to a corresponding expense increase, right? So those are my two notes there. We're going to use 3% of expenses, and we're going to also show you the difference with no changes in revenues. Just for your knowledge, these are the capital improvement numbers that we're using. So there's the kind of lump sum there by year, and then there's also, some quick explanations of what staff provided to us in terms of what would need to be replaced. You can see some of those numbers are quite large. It's going to kind of cause some spikiness. I'm not the person who knows the most about the system and what is the most important to replace when. So I'm going to look at Jason really quickly. Some of those things might be able to be smoothed over time. That's a possibility, but the lump sums likely wouldn't change. Like it's unlikely that those overall numbers would go down just because of the price of construction and materials right now.
Correct. And they could be spread out over time.
Right.
But these things have been identified as 5-year capital improvement projects that really we need to look at doing.
Right.
You see in 2028, a new water tower. We might could do land acquisition 1 year, engineering fees 1 year, and then construction the following year.
Right.
But we need to look at that now and plan for it.
Thank you, Jason. That was a better way than I was explaining it. And another way to kind of smooth, right? Like you can kind of plan yourself. The reason that debt is a tool in this industry is it smooths the cost over many years. So you could also consider, do you want to kind of package some of these things almost together and have a debt package, and then you're paying off the construction over many years. So that's something we're happy to help with modeling what that would look like as well. For now, we're just going to use the CIP as it's set up so that you all can see. So first we have a summary of our expenses. This is basically just what are all the types of expenses that you have and what do they look like. So capital needs, again, it's going to kind of have that spikiness because of the current way that the CIP is laid out. And then that's in the yellow line. And then those green bars are representing those operating expenses with that 3% amount. You can see it says growth capped. Usually we're seeing people with average expense increases that are wildly high. And so we're actually capping their year-over-year growth on their expense line items to be a slightly more moderate projection. But this is just kind of showing you what is making up your expenses currently.
Question. So you're saying after 2031, that line's straight because nothing was planned?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, really great point. So 2031 is just what you've planned to so far. That doesn't mean that it completely goes
By the time we
away.
get there, there'll be more.
Yeah, well, that's just stop there.
Is planning suggested?
That's a great question. So the state, like if you want to qualify, so if you're applying for like fundings from DWI, they have a point category where you get extra points if you plan 10 years in advance. So suggested, some people
Points
have,
going towards what?
like if you're applying for state funding, they have a point system, like a points matrix, where you're awarded points for like all these different categories. That's something that we've worked on quite closely, and a big like make or break can be, do you have a 10-year CIP versus a 5-year, and a 10-year CIP that you didn't adopt 5 years ago. They want to see that people are kind of keeping up with it and moving it along. But some larger utilities, they do kind of more master planning of 20, 30 years, depending on the project and what they have going on.
Yeah, if you have to rebuild a $40 million treatment plant.
That's right. Great questions. Okay, so first we'll compare, with these capital expenditures. And actually, let me check something really quickly if I have it in my. There we go. So that's what I thought. There's it from 2031 with the knowledge of you will likely have capital expenditures. We did put in a placeholder of 500,000 annually. So it's not actually zero. If we look at this, see how it's staying straight, but it's not down at the bottom. So thank you for drawing my attention to that. So we do kind of have a placeholder because capital improvements never stop. It's just something that always has to be done in this industry. So first we'll compare revenues and expenses with those capital improvements and that low growth scenario of the 1.83% increase in revenues over time. And we can see pretty quickly that those expenses in the purple are crossing those low growth, and then they kind of never recover, right? So they're exceeding, you're no longer having cost recovery, and then that kind of gap just like widens over time, largely due to inflation. If we look at no growth revenues, so our revenues are going to stay constant, it's just a more exaggerated relationship of how much expenses are exceeding revenues. Now, the good and the bad news is that you do have some cash on hand. So that is what people often use to kind of plug that gap between if there's changes between or a gap between expenses and revenues where you don't have enough revenues in one given year. And that's what that unrestricted cash can be very helpful for. What this graph is showing is it can't last forever, right? And so what you kind of see it doing first is crossing what I'm calling the cash floor, and that's 180 days target that we start with. So it crosses the cash floor quickly in 2027, and then you can see by 2028 it's crossing to negative territory, which is not actually something that you would do, but we kind of show it over time, just to show, like, does it rebound after some time, which it could do depending on how you change rates. Okay, and then I like to show this even though this is in no way a recommendation to not make capital improvements in your system. Sometimes folks, it's easy to see those big capital improvement numbers and go, well, can we wait on some of them or something? Ultimately, like, even with no capital improvements, this is still going to happen due to just inflation. Then your expenses will continue to rise. Also, what we've seen because of that spiky graph that I showed you is that waiting on capital improvements often just makes them more expensive down the road. So you all are nodding and looking at me like, yeah, we know this already, so that's a good sign.
The spike on the graph is not good.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So any questions before I move into some of the rate options that we had discussed with staff that they wanted to see the impact on the bill?
Can we just go back for 1 second?
Yeah.
You had a slide that was up, you were talking about like 0.08. What is this growth right here? Yes.
Yeah.
So when you say the slow growth, no growth, what is that based on? Is it based on users coming on board? Is it based on?
It's just based on actually your past 3 years of revenues.
Okay.
So we didn't look at the rate changes that happened. We just looked at the lump revenues, and we said, what is the year over year change? And we did year 1 to year 2, year 2 to year 3, and we averaged them. And so over the past 3 years, you've had like 1.83% on average of growth in revenues each year.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Expenses have been lower, like I said, 0.8%. But I just think that's lower than I would expect to see. So I didn't jack it up to like 7%. I just thought 3% was maybe a more useful projection rate. But yes, this is based on your data. Other questions? Okay. So like I said, we'll keep working on the rates analysis where we can talk about, and again, it's trying to read the tea leaves and make projections about what you could expect to see. A lot of things can impact that. And we kind of have, when we do a rates analysis, we have a lot of assumptions based into our model to make it the most conservative estimate possible. So we have a provision in there that says, if you raise rates, some customers will respond and will reduce their discretionary water usage. And so they will actually use less and their bills will go down. We also have a provision that says over time, over many years, it's a small percent, like 1%, but appliances get better and people use less water for those reasons. So that's kind of some of the things that are baked into our analysis. And again, we'll keep working with staff to try to prepare that tool for you all. But what we did in the interim was, can we look at your current rate options, and if knowing that you all are a bulk water purchaser and that those rates are likely to change, what are some options that you could consider for your retail rates or Nashville customers, and how would it impact their bill? And so again, these are just some options. We can share the spreadsheet with your staff, and it's easy to kind of manipulate, look at some other options as well. So it can get really overwhelming. So I think we just did 3 to start. And you all can kind of see how you feel about that and what else you might want to see.
3 what?
3 options
3
for
options.
rates, yeah. So what we did is we looked at the inside 5/8 meter rate, and this is your current structure, and we've looked at it at 4 different consumption points. So no usage at all, basically what's the fixed fee, 1,000, 4,000, and 7,000 gallons, And then what I'm showing is the summed bill for water and sewer. And hopefully this looks at least somewhat familiar because it's likely what a lot of customers are paying. This is probably a lot of your customers, your residential customers. Okay, the first option that we looked at is a 15% increase across the board because I've heard that's what your bulk water supplier, that's the change that they're making. So that's just mirroring that change. And you can see the current rates are reflected in that green table, and then the 15% increase is basically, that's what would be on your rate sheet. So instead of $19 as your base for water, it would be $21.85. You can also see what the bill would be at those different consumption points with the 15% increase. And then what I've highlighted in purple is what's the change in the monthly bill. So what is actually going to be the impact on the customer depending on what they use.
And that includes base fee plus the rate.
Yes, that is just the 15% increase column minus the current bill. So it's the total impact that they will see. And again, there might be, especially for people using more, so 1,000 gallons is not really discretionary water usage. But depending on who you are and what your habits are, who's using water in the household, some folks might respond and they might use a little less water. I often use the example of a pool party I had at my house last year, and my baby pool was more like a teenage pool. And so it was just really big. And I was like, I'm filling it up once and I'm not doing it again, right? So people start to respond to their bill. That's just kind of an observed behavior. So this is one option. Knowing that, do you have a question?
Now, those are our figures as we have it right now, right?
Yes. This is your bill and then just a 15% across the board. Everybody gets a 15% increase. So knowing that you all have some other things that you might want to fund, like your capital improvements, the other option we looked at was 15 plus a little bit, so that you have that wiggle room of extra revenues on top of what you would be paying to your bulk water supplier. And so we looked at a 17% increase. And the same, kind of structure applies to this slide. You can see the 17% rates up in the green column, in the green table, the increases in the blue table, and then again, the change in the monthly bill is shown in purple. I will have a comparison chart where you can look at all the changes, but as we would expect, since it's 17% instead of 15%, the change in monthly bills is a little bit higher than the 15% scenario.
So can you go back to the 1938? So it's basically less than $2 on the third one. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And then the last option is just another way to think about it. And so what we've modeled is a 10% increase, but additive over 3 years. So 10% in year 1, 10% in year 2, 10% in year 3. With the idea that it's less sticker shock immediately, and it's something that is more adjustable to over time. And so this time in the purple numbers, you're seeing what the increase would be each year. So the first year it would be an increase for at the base fee, it would be an increase of $4.80. Then the next year, an additional $5.28, and then the third year, $5.81.
With that, would we still be able to cover our expense yearly?
So that's what we haven't been able to do is project the revenues.
Whether we can cover our expense.
But the idea here, and this was a in conversation with staff, was just another option, is it's less of an immediate impact on customers. You do have some unrestricted cash if in the first year that 10% does not make up for the 15% that you're being charged by your water supplier, the 15% bump. But then you continue making the adjustments.
How much is working an increase in hours?
15.
15. Okay.
June
What did we go up last year?
June 1st, yeah.
We did.
We didn't.
I thought we did.
All right.
Was it 2 years ago we went up? We went up one time.
We haven't been up here 3 years.
3 years.
But we did have a
We
garbage.
had increases.
Oh, it's garbage.
Right.
I think we went up something, yeah.
And we've received increases from Rocky Mount each of the last 3
And we
years.
tried to cover it.
Between 7% and 8% each year, and now
No, 115.
15.
Right. So the 10% is, right, a strategy is to start putting more and more of that, not just covering it with unrestricted cash or however you all have been doing that.
Well, it's been at the expense of reinvesting in our system.
Right. Right.
Well, the 30% over 3 years, if they raise it again, we didn't raise last few years, we're still gonna be in the hole. We're not in the hole, but
No,
no growth.
no growth. I mean, Trust has got it calculated. We're going to begin this fiscal year with a fund balance in water and sewer of about 1.3 million. And with that, we can do some of the capital improvements that Jason has shown in what Hope has shown here to get started. But, it won't take too many $1 million projects, and that's gone. Without having something in the rate that, is above and beyond their operating costs to replenish it.
And that unrestricted cash flow fund balance is, required to be at least 60 days. So it's also not, that graph I showed of it being exhaustible, like you can't use all of it. Is there intended to be like worst case scenario, at least 60 days from the LGC? You all might want it to be more. If there's, a pump station that's really essential, you need to be able to fix it tomorrow. And if it goes down and not wait for other funding, like that's what that is really there for as well.
You already said we have 50% of our infrastructure is not good.
Right.
Well, it's not no good. I mean, it's
It's almost
usable,
standby.
but it's beyond, what do you call that? Service line?
Yeah, it's beyond the service line.
Yeah.
So your AC pipe is, it's in the rest home. So,
We should be able to, if you take $10 average times our users, we should be able to figure pretty quickly what the revenues are, right? Just take an average, right? I know you want to do it right. That's why it's taking a while.
So what, you were explaining that there was like some sort of anomaly, like you had tried to do this, but you were realizing it wasn't matching. So what exactly was that?
Yeah, I didn't understand that either.
Sure. So what we do is we, and this is a little different than some ways that people do rates analyses. So, we're at an academic institution and we did a whole values exercise as a team, and one of our values is data rigor. And so this is the drawback to that value, is that when we're seeing, when we're not able to validate, is it a useful tool? And so basically what we've done is we've taken every customer's billing data for every month, because I want to see what are they actually using, what's their actual volumetric usage, instead of thinking about, okay, Jason has the lump numbers over the year of how much water you all have sold. What are people actually using, so that we can see what's the average usage going to be for different customers of different meter sizes and actually project that volumetric revenue. This is especially important if you have something called an increasing block structure, where people are charged differently as they increase in usage. But since you have a volumetric rate in general, it will be impacted, especially as you start changing rates. So what we did is we kind of put that all into our model, and we project a revenue, and we do it for a year where you have an observed revenue that we can compare it to. And we try to get within 5% of what you observed, preferably an under projection instead of an over projection. And that tells us that the model is working sufficiently well to where if you want to start making tweaks and changes, it'll give you a reasonable estimate of what your revenues could be. So if we're seeing I think we were more like 12 or 17% off, it's just not a super useful decision-making tool.
What would cause being off by that much?
It's a great question. That's what we're trying to figure out. And it is kind of different for every utility. So we were working with a different utility, other side of the state, far out west, and we said, hey, we have this big difference in your revenues of what we would expect to see. And it was, they were or it wasn't their revenues, but it was their usage totals, and we kind of checked that as well as another data check. And it was that a customer in that class was actually the wastewater treatment plant, their water usage, which was not being billed. And we were telling them, well, we can bill for that, like you can kind of bill yourself for that, but that was the explanation.
So that's why we're trying to figure out what all of our systems are using, all of our buildings and things like that.
Yeah,
But
so currently, we don't really track what the police department uses, what the fire department, what the library, what Parks and Recs use. So it kind of throws into some unknowns. What are they actually using? What, if Chris goes and flows a fire hydrant, that's water loss. But essentially, if the fire department takes showers, that's considered water loss because we don't have any way to quantify how much. So Tressa and I are looking at next year, being able to quantify how much each department uses, so to better help the algorithm, I guess.
But to that point, would regular water loss, like that huge water main break that we had, would that account for something like that? Some huge discrepancy, or like a big water user coming off, like Atlantic Natural Foods, but like, would those things affect this or no?
The water user coming off with, because we're looking at metered data. So we're comparing like metered data and then what was billed
Okay.
and trying to project revenues. But you know, that's kind of, it really depends on, and every utility sets this up a little bit differently. So it depends on like how you all have set it up and us trying to understand the system and connect that with how our model works. But you're totally right in terms of projecting fixed revenues. It is pretty simple. It's you take that base rate and you multiply it by the number of customers.
Right.
It's the volumetric piece that's tough.
So our public-owned building, our Nashville-owned buildings don't have meters.
They have meters.
They do.
We just don't read them,
We just don't-
So they're just not,
accounted.
right, so now, June first, June first, every building facility will have W-99, which is the internal code, where we can track how much water is being billed, but it's just not gonna be billed. However, in the future, we need to look at building every one of the departments for their water usage, to treat the enterprise as a business.
For business.
But we are on the right track to get to that point, because then we'll be able to budget how much water every facility is really using.
So
But we're not going, but we won't build it.
Well, we should build, we should, but
Internally, we can bill them. It's not like they're gonna get a water bill, but internally, we could transfer funds from general fund to the enterprise fund to cover their water usage, just like Duke Energy does with their lights.
Something that should be coming from the general fund.
Yeah, the way we kind of explain it is everyone's a customer to the enterprise fund. Even the town.
Even the time.
Even the town is a customer to the enterprise fund. Any water that is used is billed for,
It's a cost.
is a cost. Because there are other ways, like you said, water main breaks, hydrants, just, there's other ways that you can have water loss and so-called non-revenue water. It's unavoidable. So if there are things you can control, then that's where to start. Things to measure and things to build.
But last year, we only had like a 4% water loss. So we're
That's good.
running a pretty tight ship, but the main break that you spoke of earlier, 1.4 million gallons, that was not, we don't know those figures yet. That was for 2025. So next year, we could have a 6% water loss because of such a large main break.
So this is just the comparison across those three strategies. Like I said, now that we have this kind of set up, if there's other strategies that you are interested in, we're happy to provide that spreadsheet to staff and assist with some other strategies. And we can certainly calculate, the number of the fixed revenues. That is more straightforward to calculate. It's just the overall revenues are challenging.
I think it'd be important to know, if we do the 10-10-10, it'd be important to know how much our funds go down first year, because they will go down.
But weren't we, like, in the blue on that chart, like we were only in the red on that one, and we were in the blue pretty significantly, I think, where, like, the fact we were able to absorb the last 3 rate increases, I don't know that we would be in the red by doing the 10, 10, 10. Maybe I'm wrong though.
Well, I would say that once you start, Jason starts implementing projects, when you get a water tower, we're gonna go down.
Right.
So we're not building any reserve. But then think about next year, City of Rocky Mount passes on a 12% increase. I'm just putting it out there. Then we only
Right.
get 10, and
Yeah.
so we wouldn't. That borrower says everything is just going up. If we don't, I wish we had just been putting in a little bit every
Right,
single year
exactly.
versus skipping years because it just puts us behind. I don't know if y'all remember that $45 bill to a $75 bill. That was rough on us at the front counter because we took the hit every day. It was mad.
We should have done a low.
They pay their bills because they need water. So
Yeah, and I'll say to Trissa, as a water provider, I don't think Rocky Mountain's gonna go up next year, but we don't know. So if we do defer and do the 10, 10, 10, we're in the same situation we are in this year. What are they gonna do? Because they are both wholesale for water and sewer. So, and let's just say they don't do nothing next year, but year 3 they do, then we really haven't gained a whole lot at all.
Now, when it comes to capital improvements, like a water tower, that's something that's going to be benefiting for the next however many years, 30
25,
plus years.
30 years.
So do we really want our current customers to feel that full impact, or is that something that we should be doing, like you were saying, like a debt service package, so that it's paid off for years to come, so that everybody is paying their equal share instead of our customers today?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's one of the I guess points in the debt column. It's called the pay-use strategy. The people who are using the infrastructure and benefiting from the infrastructure are the ones who are paying for it. With kind of a pay-go strategy where you're saving up over time, it doesn't keep the burden from the ratepayers. The ratepayers are always going to be paying. It just depends on if you're saving up over time. Customers in year 1 through whatever, let's say it takes 10 years to save for that capital improvement. They're paying into something that they don't see the benefit for, either for 10 years or potentially never, right? If people are coming into the system, they're paying and then they're leaving and going to another water provider, going to another community. So that is why they call it the pay-use strategy of using debt service, is you get the upfront capital, you make the improvements, and then you pay it off over time. Now, the caveat there is, depending on the terms of your loan, some terms extend past that useful life, and so you want to pay close attention to those terms so that you're not then paying for something that is no longer in service.
And underground utilities, it's very hard to find financing for that. Water towers, lift stations, something that can be an asset is easy. But when you start talking about replacing 2-inch main, replacing
Right.
AC pipe, it's very hard to impossible to get financing for those projects.
Do we charge a new user fee? Sure we do, but is it?
There's a connection fee.
it's $45. It could be more, but
Is that your tap fee?
No, that's the
well,
application.
what is the service?
It's $3,400 is the connection fee.
So 45 is lower than what I've seen,
No,
but
you're thinking about
3,400 is more in line.
I was thinking about the
So 3,400 for a new structure.
For a new connection, yes. If our water main goes past your house and has for years and you decide first you gotta annex and then you gotta pay the connection fee. Unless, you do something like you did for Red Oak Road to entice people to connect to that new water main we're extending there, you offer to, with annexation, waive the connection fee if they connect at this time.
And that's new construction also. Like virtually new house.
Well, in that case, the developer is installing the infrastructure, and they're installing the taps as they're laying out the lots. So the only thing the customer would have would be their application fee. Now, along Birchwood, where Jason and Robbie Davis are, they're paying the connection fee. So each time the guys go out and run a new service line to one of those lots they're going to build on, they come in and they pay for that connection. But if the internal part of that subdivision, when they get building it, they're gonna be installing the water and sewer systems in that 180 lot subdivision, and they will stub each lot. So the future homeowners won't have a connection fee because the developer will already have provided it.
Well, a negative thing, Randy, is like, we're gonna be landlocked, we aren't ready to have any more of these big developments where we'll have new users coming on, will we?
Well, we will if the owner of the property annexes, and again,
That's the only way though, if
that-
they agree to annex.
sure, and call it what you want, it's a trump card. I mean, you don't allow somebody to have the town's water and sewer without annexation. And then with the water and sewer, obviously, they can develop at a much higher density than they can without.
Tracy, you were saying that application fee could be higher. What's the normal application fee?
I haven't actually looked at the other towns, but I can go back today and look at other towns and see what they're charging. To, go out and set it up.
Is that just like their deposit that they get
Well,
back?
no, they pay, service fee is not refundable, the deposit is refundable. So, well, we only charge $45 for the guys to go out there and connect or turn it back on.
Okay.
I mean, that, this ain't go up that much, but, you know, $5. Yeah.
That goes in the enterprise fund,
Right.
$45.
Right.
I misstated on the connection fee. For a 3/4 inch water line, it's $2,400. For a 1 inch, it's $28. For an 1.5 inches, it's $5,050. For a 2 inch, it's $5,800.
And do those numbers,
Wait, what were the first two numbers, Randy?
Right at the top there. By meter size,
2,400 plus the meter cost.
yes. And the meter cost for what, it's like $380 now?
330, yeah. That sounds roughly in line. There was actually just some chatter about this on the NC water listserv, people saying, what are your, and I was working with another town that said, we're getting some heat for our connection fees, and they're in the couple of $1,000 range. And the idea is that it should cover the cost of getting your folks out there, putting the line in, putting the meter in, those materials, that time. There's a different type of fee that you used to be able to charge something called an impact fee, which was like, what is the impact on the overall infrastructure? And you can't do that. So now you're required to set up something called a system development fee, and it's very prescriptive in what you have to do. And so for most utilities, unless you're anticipating many large developments coming in where that developer is going to pay you that system development fee, it's likely the juice isn't worth the squeeze. But it's certainly something we can provide.
For putting in 200 houses, would not be worth it?
It depends. This is
For recreation, it might.
it's kind of like a newer area. We get a lot of questions about it. I'm happy to send some resources if that's something you all want to consider. You do have to keep it updated. And you have to like calculate the fee in a very specific way. But the idea is, instead of covering that cost for Jason and his team to go out and connect them, it's like if you need to make improvements on the rest of the system. So you need to upsize a water line, or you need to put a EQ basin at the wastewater treatment plant so that you can take on more flow for those customers. It's intended to help cover those. You also have to treat the revenues a certain way and keep them reserved for those capital projects. So it can just be more complex. And that happened over like the past 10 years. So some people still have these kind of legacy impact fees that they're not legally allowed to charge. Other questions, thoughts, comments for us?
I had one, at the beginning of the presentation, you talked about regionalization.
Mm-hmm.
And regionalization has its pros and its cons.
It does.
I know why NCDEQ pushes it because, overall there's efficiencies there. But it also leads to the problem we're experiencing right now. We're locked into a regionalization agreement with the city of Rocky Mount. And we're completely, we have no say whatsoever in what the wholesale water and sewer rates are, despite them telling us that we're one of their wholesale partners. We don't feel like a partner very often.
Right.
So I don't know if you have any insight to any of that, as far as other options somebody in our situation could possibly pursue. I just don't see NCDEQ permitting us to put our own water treatment plant, sewer treatment plant back in place. And it'd probably cost us about $33 million to do it
Right.
if we did. It's impractical, well, probably impossible for us to cover our own water usage with well water. And I don't know if Stony Creek has a great enough water volume that we could pull from it like Rocky Mountain pulls from the Tar River. And even if we could do that, again, it'd probably be difficult to get NCDEQ permitting to do so when they like the regionalization approach.
Yeah, I don't have great advice other than this is something that we are looking at a lot more frequently. I think partially because of some of the issues that you raised about regionalization has benefits, but when there's these drawbacks, kind of how can they be dealt with, if they can be dealt with. So it's, I guess, an active area of kind of research and resource development for our team. We have like an interlocal agreement database that we're putting together and will hopefully be live soon so that people can see how are other folks agreeing to work together and kind of what are some provisions that you might want in there. So
What's like, we have no teeth, like what would even be our negotiation? They can draft whatever they want to draft and we have to sign it, because what is our alternative?
right, and I don't have a great answer for you. I will say that bulk rates I am currently surveying bulk rates across the state. I think the state knows that there's kind of these vast, many ways to charge for bulk customers, and I have no idea what they'll do with that information. You know, I heard someone earlier this week say if anyone predicts what is going to happen in the legislature, they don't listen to them, and that's kind of how I feel. But I know DEQ is looking at it. I don't know if the legislature is looking at it, but we did a regionalization study that was legislatively directed. So I don't know, but yeah, it's something that we're looking at as well. Is what are people being charged for bulk rates, and when we can, how can we compare that to the supplier's inside rate to see how it compares?
Are you aware of any place in the state where a city has had a water treatment and a sewer treatment plant, and the users, the wholesale users of that approached them, and that city, in essence, sold those facilities to a regional authority. And then that a regional authority was in charge of operating those facilities and determining what the rates are for all, including the incumbent municipality that originally owned them. And would that take maybe a local bill in order to get done?
It doesn't take a local act. It takes it doesn't take an act like from the General Assembly if you want to form an authority. It takes everyone in the authority agreeing to do so.
Including,
The incumbent.
Absolutely, yeah.
so that's where we're gonna have.
In terms of like how these things happen, every single instance
Place is different.
is different, and it depends on the dynamics, what else is happening. You know, are there permit restrictions? Are there new businesses coming to town that need to be served? I mean, it's very challenging. I wish I had a better answer. I'm happy to provide you all with like the information that we do have. But there's no straight and narrow answer, like no silver bullet.
Randy, I know you were not here, but why did we abandon our treatment plant? Do you know, Chris?
What the, we had problems with it, there was an issue with that system.
I heard that, and there was some endangered snail or something like that.
Who?
Endangered snail.
You
Snail.
mean the crawling snail?
It's in the Tar River, it's like a mussel. That's the reason why they can't dig out part of the reservoir to make it deeper because of the mussel.
We can go back maybe in the minutes and look. My guess would be it needed substantial upgrades and improvements, and it was less expensive to run a line to Rocky Mountain.
Right.
It was 50 years ago, right?
Yeah, it was no how.
I think it was 60. I think it was a money issue where they expanded the upgrade
Okay.
I have a couple of questions. What is your experience with a 28-day billing cycle where you have one extra bill per year?
I would say that's something that we see often, but there's really broad authority for how you can set and collect bills in the state. So I would say it is allowed. It's uncommon. Have you seen anything of that nature?
Recommended. So we were on a different cycle, so really we done took 3 weeks from right now. Because they increased in July, January they changed their bill cycle, which produced a extra bill. Because
Okay.
now they're every 28 days, and now the increase in June.
So in each bill, there's obviously fees that
Base
you would
fees.
only get 12 times, and
Okay.
now it's 13.
Call it a monthly fee, but it's. Yeah, 13 they're of just them. trying to build up. with it.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't heard of that strategy. I would say like something that we observe with bulk suppliers is like in your interlocal agreement, this could be something to review. And I hear you about not having teeth, but kind of how are you all reviewing what flows through the master meter? Who is in charge of like calibrating the master meter, and how do you work with Rocky Mount on that? Sorry, Jason, I'm looking at you,
We are now.
but that's a good way to kind of confirm, because we've worked with utilities that say, well, we just get the bill and that's what we pay. You know, obviously what's read on that meter is really important. So that's kind of a lower stakes thing to pursue, perhaps that could have a big impact.
We're in control of that meter, you know, that we
Now.
had questions about.
We are now.
Okay,
Um,
so that's a great step.
I have another question. So you talked about interfund transfers and how there's restrictions. So how you can only take a certain amount from general fund to be paying back, you know, expenses and things in the enterprise fund that needs to be justifiable. What is like the actual rule? Is it just best practices, or is there like a hard and fast rule that says you can only do so much of a percentage of a transfer?
I heard you quote a number earlier, Randy, so I don't want to. What I'm more familiar with, and I apologize, I can never remember if it's in or out. But basically, the state looks at, if you want to get state funding, the state looks at what are your transfers, and you have to do a fund transfer certification form. And I believe what they're looking at are transfers in.
From enterprise to general.
From general
Oh,
into
the general-
enterprise.
But we can follow up.
I think
It's not a-
Kate's question is the other way around, from enterprise
I
fund to
want to
general.
know what's being transferred from enterprise to general.
We just had some, do you have Christie's analysis?
I do,
But
but
I was
I'm
like,
not
we
connected
just-
to the internet, so I
We just did an analysis on this because this is something that we've gotten some questions about.
Because I know it's like electric, like they had something where it was like no more than 3%.
They have more hard and fast rules about this. That's my understanding as well. Can we follow up via
Yes,
email?
absolutely.
Yeah, because we were just looking at this as well because the guidance has been a little wishy-washy.
And I think the best practice is to mirror that electric, the statute with regard to electric utility.
Just wish it
apply
wasn't
that
best
to-
practice. I wish it was a statute.
I mean, ultimately, you want to tie it to, you know, what we kind of rely on a lot of times is like, what's the justification? So if it's a justification like staff time or these other things where it's, you know, it's being paid out of the general fund, but it's supporting the utility, that's justifiable.
It's just supporting your general fund and your expenditures and your salaries for the sake of supporting your general fund. That's not justifiable.
I would say it's you know, I'm not a regulator, so I don't know, but I think what they want to see is that the public enterprise is supporting itself. And so I could see the argument being, well, if you have enough, if you're, and I'm not saying this is something you all are doing at all, but let's say someone was just, you know, funneling money in, you know, 25% of their revenues over to the general fund. Then if you go to the state and you say, hey, we need a grant, hey, we need a subsidized loan, they're saying, well, what
you use this other money for?
why is this money not supporting yourself? So that's kind of the thinking behind it.
So anytime that you would go to the state, you need to get that funds transfer certificate.
Certification form, yeah.
Okay, so realistically, if anyone had gone to the state, that should be available, right?
That's on Division of Water Infrastructure's
Okay,
website,
so
the
yeah,
fund transfer
okay.
certification form, and you can see the details there.
And does it show other towns? Like, does it show data, or is it just like,
No, that is the form
The
you
form.
would fill out to
right, so where are
submit.
the filled out forms? Where can one access those?
So the
I have ours.
LGC does track transfers. I will tell you, it is hard to find this database where they, like, I would say, like, if it's hard for us, why is it so hard? Because we like do it all the time. But they do track transfers. It's one of their financial performance indicators of concern. And so we can also see if we can find that link where it kind of shows everyone what people are doing. Yeah.
And I can't speak to a statute, but DWI's Viable Utilities Program does mark points if you transfer out of the proprietary into the general. And if you get enough points, you can end up on the Viable Utilities list. And then there are statutory obligations.
Requirements, yeah.
Okay,
So it is something that people are looking at. It's just not necessarily like, if you do this,
okay.
you know, there's
So
often these
is
like
it like
trigger
an audit
points.
though, or is it like they keep track of every single town?
So it'll be reflected in your audit, I believe, the transfer status. And then the Viable Utilities Program calculates a score for every single utility in the city. So like you all got a score, at some, you get one every year. And then
Melanie, Brian, she works with LEC, so,
She's our advisor.
right.
Oh,
So, yeah, so she was the one that says in most municipalities, they're mirroring the, how they use the
Okay.
transfer.
She would
So
know.
no more than 4%, of the enterprise, if needed. We don't need it.
Right.
And LGC is the one who's going to ultimately, so like the point system would be, LGC ultimately says, yes, they should be distressed. LGC is going to prove any debt. So LGC is the best person to advise, I would say, on that, because they're the ones who are going to make decisions based off of it. Often we're trying to be like, what is LGC going to say, so that we can then. But if you are working closely with your LGC coach, then that's great.
We just wanna make sure we're not doing anything wrong, so I've already had that conversation with Melanie this week. Again, you know, make sure that we're,
Right.
you know, doing the right thing.
So because you don't have that other portion of the data, then we can't really see like those graphs and how things interact if we were to adopt one of these things.
Well, we can project them in our spreadsheet. I mean, that's what Tress and I have done on revenues. We've looked at our year-to-date revenues and figured out 9 months in, we're on track for this for the year. If we put 15% of that, 10%, this is how much revenue it should likely bring in.
Right.
It's a very simple way to project it.
And I would say that's, a lot of great studies do that. That's kind of, again, the downside of our process, is it's digging a little closer in case you all want to implement other things. So there's kind of rate structure changes that you could consider in the future.
What are some of those? Maybe you could give us an
Sure.
example of those.
Sure. So like a common example is something known as a consumption allowance. It's the idea that within the base fee, you have a certain amount of usage that's included. And that can be set at whatever you would like. So it doesn't have to be equal to your volumetric rate. You could say, in that base fee of $48, we're going to give you 2,000 gallons per month. And it's often seen as an affordability measure. So if folks can control their water usage, then it makes a part of their bill more predictable. They know that even if, if they can stand under that 2,000, it's going to be included in the base bill. What we would want to look at is, if you're going to do that and you don't change the rates, how's that going to affect your revenues? Because effectively the first 2,000 gallons of everyone's usage, you're no longer getting that volumetric revenue for. But you can sometimes make adjustments to then the volumetric rate so that, if people are exceeding that, then they would see a higher bill. So that's a strategy that folks use sometimes. Similarly, you can have something called a block structure. So basically for each block of usage, you're charging a different volumetric rate. They don't have a block structure. No, It's just a volumetric, flat volumetric. So one of those is called an increasing block structure. The more water you use, the higher, like each increasing block, you are charged more for that higher water usage.
So ours is blocked, but it's not, the fee is the same per,
Yours is just one volumetric rate.
Volume.
Yeah, total volume. And so with an increasing block structure, what we might see is that, from 0 to 4,000, it's one charge per 1,000 gallons. From 4 to 10, it's another charge. And the idea is that you're disincentivizing that high use, so that can be helpful for something like a paid water bill where you're paying a bulk supplier, their rate. And so you don't want to pay for more than people are using. People also use something called a decreasing block structure where it's actually cheaper the more that folks use. And there's various kind of justifications for that if you have, industry or commercial users who are using enough that, there's benefits they're bringing to the system without corresponding costs. And so everything is supposed to be tied back to the cost for service, and those large users can actually represent lower costs sometimes than
so
your
on that
residential.
version, you take what they used to pay, and if they use less water, charge them less? You know what
Well,
I'm
it's
saying?
just per volume, so like if they use the 7,000, their rate would be $10 per gallon or whatever, instead of $5, or instead of $15 per gallon for 4,000. So you would charge a higher per gallon rate, I
Yeah.
guess?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
And
you
it can
go
be
the other
quite
way.
it can be quite big blocks, right? So a decreasing block rate could look like over 20,000 gallons of usage, you get the cheaper rate. It really depends.
What's the difference between the up and the down? I'm confused.
So the increasing block is if you're the higher blocks of usage, you're paying more as the per
Right.
gallon as you go up. So that could look like 0 to 5,000 gallons is $5 per 1,000, 5 to 15 is $6 per 1,000, and 15 and above is $7 or something of that nature. The decreasing block structure is just the opposite.
The more you
And-
use, the cheaper it gets.
The more you use, the cheaper
Oh,
it gets. And then people also do both. They do an increasing and then a decreasing, right? So they want to discourage use in that kind of middle realm, but then for really high water users, it's a cheaper rate. So there's lots of different strategies. Sometimes we have this picture of all these crazy roads because there's many different ways that you can do it.
This residential is there for everybody?
This is inside 5/8. So I believe that's your residential customers.
Our water rate, per 1,000 gallons is the same for everybody.
Okay.
We have a different base rate based depending upon what size meter you have. And the theory there is, an 1.5 meter, when it does need maintenance, costs more to replace and maintain than resident, 3/4 inch residential.
So you and Tressa are looking at what these would look like, revenues versus expenditures. What have you seen so far as your preference on the 10, 15, or 17?
Well, obviously, a 15% increase it's a tough pill to swallow. So,
What is less than $10?
yeah. But, people, when they see their bill, it includes water, sewer, garbage, recycling. And they see that and they all call that their water bill. They don't break it down by water and sewer.
The citizens know that Rocky Mountain has increased our fees a lot also. So,
We have in what we're going to present to you a 15% increase. We also calculated at 12, which we can make work, and 10, which we can make work, which is getting a little tight. We won't have money to squirrel away for capital improvements at 10 as much as we do at 15 as a rate increase.
So let me ask you a question. So if we did an equal amount for 3 years and potentially the board could change in a year and a half, how does that affect it?
Well, yeah, we're gonna be in the same seat, whether we agree to the or not.
I mean, if we agree and then the board changes, can it change again, or is that set? That's my question.
No, we only set them for 1 year.
See, yeah.
But the intent could be, at this time, we put in a 10% increase, and we're planning to do that for the next 2 years after this one. And then, you know, elections come, council changes, and new council chooses something
They
different.
can choose not to use it if they want to.
I'd almost prefer to do the 15 to match what Rocky Mount is doing, and then plan to do the small incremental increases unless they have a massive increase again year after year.
And then that's where you guys can really help us. You know, we get it set for this fiscal year, and you can tell us what subsequent years need to be.
Or
That's
do
something we could
15,
do. And
then
we could
just
also
do
talk about if you
or something,
want to
just throw away that extra money.
Like,
unless
that, we can get more into the weeds with,
Yeah.
with that.
Well, we almost need to do a set amount every year plus whatever Rocky Mountain goes up every year, right? I mean, to make it realistic, we would need to go up, if they went up 8, we need to go up 11, right? Because that'd be 8 plus 3. I mean, I'm just, those are your numbers.
Yeah, I mean, we encourage folks to revisit it every year and consider the impacts of inflation and other changes, and you all are a bulk water purchaser, so thinking about, that's how your expenses are going to be changing, is what their rates are changing.
So if we did 15, would we be able to throw away money for the infrastructure improvements?
Some, I think it's like 200 and,
It's in the budget worksheet. It'll be the transfer to, capital reserve, it's
$263,568.
Where are you looking at that?
It's on page 5 of the
Mhm.
revenue.
That's the profit for the enterprise every year?
That's above operating, that we can put away. And that's also including a contingency. We have a small contingency left in the Fund 30 for something unexpected. It's not real large or real great, but it's something. And this is above and beyond that.
So we're talking about spending millions of dollars in the next 5 years, and we're only making 263,000?
But we got 1.3 million.
I understand.
You know.
1.3 plus 253,000
It isn't, it isn't.
I don't like raising fees, but we gotta survive.
Yeah. It's a balancing act here.
It is.
And this is probably one of the most critical years we've had, looking at everything.
You say you're leaning toward the 15, 3, but if Rocky Mountain comes back next year, they're not gonna increase 3%, they're gonna go 7 or above.
Or even if they go the next year.
So we'll still be behind 8.
But that's not our fault, and the citizens will know. It's a
Right,
surprise.
he's thinking, instead of going as low as 3 to increase at, say, 5 or 10 or something like
Right, that way, 'cause we know Rocky Mountain not gonna come back with a 3. They never have.
Well, they've gone years without actual increases, from what I was
that.
told.
Not the last 5 years.
No, not in the last 5, but prior to that.
Well, that's why they're probably making such large ones, if they haven't made increases for what, 5, 10 years.
Well, there's other reasons too, but we'll.
Right, we won't talk about
Yeah, money coming.
I mean, I do think you're making a great point of communicating as much as you can with the citizens, not just about what is happening at Rocky Mount, but about the service improvements. You know, our manager said to me, the worst thing we ever did was put those water lines in the ground. It's something that we all use and need every day. I went camping this weekend, and I was like, man, I miss running water. Like, you miss it the minute you lose it, right? So there's ways that you can do that. You can put information on the bill. That's your biggest communication point. And information about like what you all are doing and the work you've already done. Like, here are the improvements that we're making. Here's all the work that we've been doing. Here are things that are here are things that are out of our control, and here's how we're being proactive so that we're making sure that you all have safe, reliable service into the future. I don't think anyone expects that they have to run like a PR campaign for their water system, but that's essentially what y'all are doing, yeah. And making it clear like how much work is going in, to this.
So a large percentage of our people don't even get a bill, right?
it.
A large percentage of our people don't even get a bill.
Everybody gets a bill, they get it to their email or they get it to their post office, but we are not responsible for them reading them. And most people don't, but
Email.
we do our part to put the information out there. If they don't read it, when they call, guess what? They're gonna pick up the phone and tell them.
No, thank you. You look, the figures we're looking at now, we're dealing with less with water.
Water and sewer.
Water and sewer combined?
This is both.
Okay.
Good.
That's both. So,
Sanitation, everything stays the same, so really, if you did the 15% or 17, you're still under a $10 increase. And we haven't increased the water and sewer in 3 years. I don't live in Nashville, however, I'm just looking at it.
We're talking about the user, make it more.
Right, you know, I'm just looking at it like, we didn't increase for 3 years, and our infrastructure taking a hit. At some point, we don't wanna be.
Well,
the same
the
way.
infrastructure's not gonna get any better if we don't work on it, you know?
So Randy, you gave us the number if we did the 15. Where, and I still can't even figure out what I'm looking at. Where is the number for the 17 if we put that anywhere?
you don't have it, I'd
Okay.
have to calculate it quick.
And did you say it was the,
Well, it's like $2 times the user. Give or take.
Well, so right now, on page, Fund 30 revenues are on page 4 of the revenues. And with that 15% increase in there, we're looking at a total revenue of $6,414,114.
okay.
That's what 15.
That's with the 15. If I change that to 17, formula here quick.
Okay, so that's where the,
That brings in, if you go to 17, it would bring in another $99,211. It takes it from 6.4 to 6.5 by going from 15% to 17% increase.
and then where do you have the number that shows the difference between the revenues and expenditures?
Well, if you're looking for what we can squirrel away in the capital reserve, it's on page 5. It's highlighted in yellow. But that 15%, that's how much we can put away to
15,
capital
and then add
reserves.
the 99,000.
And we aren't really squirreling it, we're just saving it so we can have something to use to get things we need.
So the 263 plus the 99,000 is what we're looking at for the 17, right?
Yes.
Are you giving us something to think about?
I always leave feeling like, maybe we've stirred up more than, than you all came in with,
We
but
all do.
We needed this information. And we knew there would have to be some type of increase because we just knew that. And we have an increase in 3 years.
Right.
You know,
right,
that was our mistake, probably that we didn't do it a little bit, you know, but we can't correct that.
right. Well, yeah, you all are doing, it sounds like you're doing what you need to do now, and one of the reasons I showed those, all those charts at the beginning, the level setting stuff is, you're not alone. A lot of people, this is our, fourth town, I think, just this budget season, because a lot of people are having these conversations of what to do. And if you're having the conversation, you're making the plans, then you're doing what you need to do and you're on the right path. So please let us know. Jason and Randy have been great, so please let us know if we can do other things. We'll keep working on that rates analysis, but if there's other questions you have or other things about trends, we have a lot of information about North Carolina utilities specifically. So.
Do you do help with, like projected out capital improvement plans, like if we want to do the 10 plus years?
So we're not engineers, so we can't, make you a CIP. We do have a tool, it's called Plan to Pay, where if you have, if Jason has the cost estimates, we can compare kind of what if you were going to save with cash versus, and when do you need the cash by versus if you're going to use debt service. So it can kind of spin that up for you. So we can help with that side.
Okay.
But we
Not
couldn't,
the actual
we
plan.
can't make you a CIP,
Okay.
yeah. Have you all, remind me, I'm so sorry, are you doing an AIA?
We have, Matt Gain Associates.
Okay. And are they preparing a CIP for you?
Have a 10-year.
They have, okay.
Jason's only pulled out of there the first 5 years.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We do, but when we start focusing 10 years out, inflation is 3, 5, 7%. So those numbers get skewed when you start going more than 5 years because no one can project what a water tower is gonna be in 8 years.
But we do have something in place so that when we're applying for those grants, we get that extra point.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
And what they want to see is that you've adopted the CIP within the past 2 years. You don't have to look, we can double check, but it's quite specific. They want a 10-year CIP adopted, I believe, within the past 2 years so that they're ensuring it's not a 10-year CIP you adopted 9 years ago. That's really not useful.
Council?
We have in the past, yeah.
Mhm.
And we haven't in a couple of years, but you know, Mike Tolson helping us with our DWI grant applications, he knows all this stuff. And he keeps us so that we can get the maximum points. And when it comes to that transfer certification,
Yeah.
he's the one telling us, you gotta be aware of that.
Right. And we can help with some of that too, especially if we know more details. We have helped with a lot of applications, so we could do that for you all if you want to look at the projects together and kind of go through the points matrix of, are you going to even get enough points to make it worth trying? It's tricky because you're always compared to the pool, so it really depends on who applies and when. But the next deadline is September 30th likely, and so if you were interested in applying, we could kind of do that analysis and see. It's usually, you can get a lot of points if your stuff is old enough, but it depends on how old it is. Okay. Okay, yeah, and what documentation you have to prove that, right? So, like, that's one of the primary project purposes is if your stuff is old enough, then, but, you know, sometimes people are like, well, it's 17 years old. Well, that's not quite old enough, even if it's reaching the end of its useful life. But that's something I'm happy to work with Jason on, if it's an interest.
Peel,
Those
P-E-E-L-E.
pictures that she showed about the different increases,
Yeah.
I snapshotted them, so I'll text them to you.
And we can also provide I'll PDF it and send it to you, and hopefully it will be,
That would be better.
yeah, I'll do that. It doesn't, sometimes it doesn't, the slide decks are too big, so it bounced from y'all's emails. I'll do a PDF and it's usually smaller.
And I know we're talking about the enterprise fund, but the general fund needs to be out here.
Jess was
Thank
like,
you
don't
so
forget.
much. We
Yes,
appreciate
thank
it.
you all. It was great to spend time with you this morning. Maybe we'll come back sometime. Maybe we'll make the next fun event that you all have. Heard we missed out this weekend.
It's a good one.
It was fun. So back to that.
Yeah.
Well, do you guys mind to take a break?
Yeah.
Quick restroom break? I think we can go to, where you gotta leave at 11:30?
Yeah, but I can just run off and come right back.
Well, Kate's gotta leave it there.
You got it.
Watch the. Yep.
So if anybody needs to use the restroom, good time.
As soon as I have all the,
Well, what the council sets for water and sewer rates has an implication on the general fund because we are following best practices and statute as best we can and transferring 3% of our water and sewer revenues to the general fund, which certainly helps. Some of the pressures that this budget has had that we haven't had in past years, well, the big one is the fact that ledgers for us, that's the state retirement fund, because we are in the state health insurance program, which we can't get out of, at least we haven't figured a way out, not that we would if we could, added 2.4% more to our elders. So across the board, that's another $233,000 of expense that this budget has that ones in the past haven't.
so how much,
Larry, what do you?
what did you want?
Well, I'm going to start on page 4, the revenues. Yeah, that one there.
Yeah, budget revenue. Why is it different than mine?
Well, Tressa handed one out that looks very similar.
Just anyone out that was very simple.
The one I handed out should have highlighted yellow stuff.
Okay, so this says budget revenue, 3, 4, here you go, Larry.
You got it?
Yeah, I think it's going on the opposite direction.
I found it. Man. With the help of-
So that was one of the pressures on this budget. It was a difficult one for Tress and I to get put, well, all the department heads, really. Again, it's just budgeted every department for what they need, plus looking forward to what they're gonna need in order to be able to do their job. There's no fluff in any of this that the term is used in budgeting from time to time. There just isn't. And again, we are a public service provider, so our greatest expense throughout all the budgets is personnel. I mean, that's how we deliver services. So last year, we were able to do a COLA, cost of living increase for all employees. It was public safety's turn to have the salary study. We weren't able to give them anything above COLA last year. So, this year if you look at it that way, they're kind of 2 years behind. We did take a look at public safety and as far as in our salary study, and public safety is increasing faster than any other department we have. And that's not unique for Nashville, that's pretty much the standard for all municipalities. And the budget that I heard last night on WRAL that the state has come to agreement on, I think it includes 28% for some of the state police. Which shop we go here? Wasn't that right? Most other state employees only got 3%, which is just COLA. But I point that out to emphasize that wages for law enforcement especially are going up faster than all other departments.
Well, we've got to look at more than just law enforcement. We need to look at more law enforcement and fire. Because I heard over the weekend that the town manager in the town of Knightdale says he's got the highest pay scale for the fire department. And he has made it a point saying nobody else is going to out cap him. So if anybody raises their salary, he's going to stay above that. And whether we agree to it or not,
I don't think he needs to worry about competition from us. But
we don't have to go about competition from us, but we do have to keep in mind that because he's so salary, we got to keep in mind, we keep the people we got. Because people are leaving, going right down the road 20 miles, and we are behind in salaries, and we losing people. And everybody knows that once you lose a person, to bring a new person in, it's gonna cost you twice as much to bring them back up to scale.
To match Knightdale, they're gonna have to pay twice as much.
You can't match them, but we've got to keep it competitive as far as the law enforcement and fire.
Unfortunately
So they're pulling from
for us, despite what the larger departments pay, not every fireman wants to work there, and not every police officer wants to work. I think with what we have proposed, we can find a happy medium.
Right.
With Chief Shockley at the reign, we've been very blessed to have very little turnover in our PD. And Chief Joyner's always kept a tight ship with personnel. And fire, unfortunately, it comes and it goes. We had many years where we had very, very low turnover in the fire department. The last few months, we've had
We've had 4 or 5.
And for those, are probably as a result of wages. One was just an opportunity that nobody probably.
Couldn't look the other way.
Exactly.
Couldn't. I understand.
So, but with all that said, I'd like to jump into the water and sewer revenues, which begin on page 4. And what you have seen in there for water revenue and sewer revenue includes a 15% increase over what our current rates are bringing in. And then, just the rest of the income revenues there. Now, we do have at the bottom there that we have are going to be bringing in $491,370 in one-time expenses when we get to the water expenses that are going to be covered from fund balance. But right now, with a 5% increase, we're looking at $6,441,000 in total revenue. And I had calculated a little,
15%.
I'm sorry, 15%. If we take that to 17, that would bring in another $99,000 and $22 right there. I didn't change it here, but I changed it. Change that to 17, so you can see that. Yeah. There's the 17 rate revenue, and that's what we bring in with, and the difference between the two is 99. Now, if we go to the expense side of things, 130 begins on page It begins on page 15. Now, within the water and sewer fund, there are about 5 different departments. And to help you guys keep track of that, I had passed around a little sheet that showed all the departments by their department number. No, that's not it. It's anything. I must have given mine away because I don't see it.
The fund numbers?
Yeah, the fund numbers.
Yeah, I got it.
And they are fun. So for starting with Fund 30, which is water and sewer, non-departmental, we're looking at the different expenses we have in there, our website, some retirement of employees that we had in the past, so we don't do that anymore. But a total expense there of $561,000. Let me get it there on the sheet on the screen. As compared to the current budget, we appropriated $192,300. So it's an increase of $371,000. And most of that is a result of this figure here, this transfer to cover capital reserve. That's the money we're going to squirrel away for future expenses.
Okay, so it's a 65% increase, but in reality, it's really not transferring over.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Last year, we didn't do that. We didn't do that.
So 263 is what we're gonna transfer over for the future. Is that what we're looking at?
Yes.
That's only if you do 15. If you do 17, that number's
Right.
gonna
It
be
was 3 something.
greater.
Yeah, it'd be greater.
And the other
It was
expense,
362, 778.
the other expense in there is, instead of us having, VC3 in every department, we took the total budget for VC3 for this year and put it in IT so that it's all in one place, so we can kind of manage it better.
Yeah.
So it's in non-departmental now, IT.
And we didn't have that expense in this
In
particular
it's been
budget last year.
So
Okay. So
Fund
the
30
expenses are still coming out.
Right, so we took it out of every department and we placed it in non-departmental because it's easier for us to be able to see it as a whole versus it's all over the budget and we can't, it just needs to be centralized. So.
And we got that contingency in there of 30,000. So if I take that out, you
Okay.
know, it's only, those 3 expenses, it's only about a 20% increase over the current. Then if you flip the page to page 16, that's water and sewer admin, the administration. So in there, we have Jason and Chad's wages and benefits. We have Samantha and Yvette, who are 100% paid out of water and sewer funds. We have 50% of my salary, 30% of Lou's, 50% of Lily's, because she's the HR director, and that's about, well, I won't say half, but fairly close to a number of employees, water and sewer wise. Tressa at 50% and Rebecca at 50%. So you'll notice when we get back from the general fund, with this cost allocation plan for wages and benefit, we changed it up a little. we shifted a little more to enterprise, after we thought about, who does what for which department. And it makes sense because that's where the people are, that's where our employees are spending their time doing those things. And we got some overtime in there. And then the insurance, again, with that ledgers, which is the state health insurance retirement, that went from 58,000 to 88,000. But jump down to the bottom, overall, current budget year was 641,000. We're projecting 815,000, so it's a 21% increase or $173,000. Now, is there anything sticks out in that group, Tressa, that is above, other than the state retirement and this cost allocation plan, put a little more cost here than it has in the years past, which accounts for that increase?
So it was less than 50% last year.
Randy and Lou was 70-30, and me and Rebecca was still 50-50, but this year, me, Randy, well, and HR was 50-50 too.
Yeah.
So the only thing that changed was Randy, really. He
Those,
went from
those are
70.
allowed to do that, and won't mess up our points. or anything like that.
We're just budgeting it versus, I don't know if you remember, well, you wasn't here, but years ago, that transfer was so big, that's because all the salaries was in there. So now, the salary piece of it, we're doing it on the front end versus lumping it all together. And our system can handle it, so I mean.
Yeah, our software system, which is nice. When we do payroll, those percentages are already pre-programmed in there.
And it just
And
disperses it, so it's budgeted the same way. It disperses it the same way we budgeted.
So then we go to water operations, and there we have our employees. We have Austin, Joe, Keith, and Wilbur. They're all at 100%. Kevin, he's our MacGyver. He keeps our stuff going. We're grateful to have him. In the water fund, he is 25%, and Walter is 50% in the water. And that's what makes up that $274,000 there. Now that's down a little bit from the current budget because again, we reappropriated. I don't think we had one or two of those in there for the current year that were put, or we took one out. I can't remember exactly what. But we got overtime wages in there, and of course, the FICA and the state retirement, all that stuff. We get down to the bottom. The difference, now we got some one-time capital expenses in here. We got $200,000. Anything in red is one-time money that we think it makes sense to use fund balance for because it's not a recurring expense. So Jason wants to do valve replacement at about $150,000. We had budgeted to get a valve turning machine. And that machine we had ordered and it had problems. So when they finally got the kinks worked out of it, we told them we didn't want it anymore. We didn't have any confidence in it. But Jason, we have a different public works director now, and Jason is of the opinion we get better value if we just contract some of that stuff out. Because chances are when we turn a valve that hasn't been turned in a long, long time,
It's gonna break.
it's going to break. If we have the crew on site that can help us repair it, I don't know if we're any further ahead, but we're no further behind by doing it that way. So we got $200,000 in there for that. We have also one-time money in here at the bottom, vehicles. Jason's looking at replacing truck 101, which is a 2010 Ford F-150, and put in a full-size four-wheel drive. And you can't see all the notes there that I have, but that's what he's got in there.
Nice truck, 110,000.
That's two.
Oh, it's two, okay. Ooh, it's a nice truck.
And then $105,000 for a hydro excavating machine.
What is that?
Hydro excavation machine is, everything's going underground now. So right now we have a vac machine that we use to hydro excavate. This is a tool that will let us go and dig around fiber lines, cable lines, and so on and so forth, and be safe and not damage those underground utilities while we repair water and sewer infrastructure.
Fiber, you can sever that with a spade. So if you know it's in the area, you gotta really find it very gingerly.
And they're putting more and more in the ground as we speak.
So total for water operations that we have budgeted, proposed here, 1,992,000, compared to 1.6 million for the current year. That's a $372,000 increase, or an 18, just shy of a 19% increase for operations. Then we go down to sewer operations, and in here for full-time wages, we have Jacob, Braxton, and Allen at 100%. We got Lamont at 40%. We got Kevin at 25%, and that's what makes up that 216,000 in there. We got some money in there for overtime, and of course all the things that are the payroll taxes basically as a result of gross wages, and they're all based on a percent of calculation. And we have some one-time money in here that we want to spend. Jason has identified 159,370 there in the red, and that's for lift station repairs, replacement of 20 guide rails and brackets, pump station hatch, 2 4-inch emergency bypass connections at Cottonwood, Cook Road. Anything else in there, Jason, that stands out?
Basically, it's taking our lift stations and getting it up to some operating standards that I feel like we need. We have some stuff that needs to be improved. Went and got some quotes from some contractors, and that will get us to where we're comfortable. If we go pull a pump, we're not gonna break a rail and cause more issues.
And it'll get us some spare pumps. So we got one on the shelf and one crapped out.
Correct. We have 12 lift stations, and I think with this, we can get about 4 or 5 pumps. Now, one pump can fit multiple lift stations, but we'll have one on the shelf. So if we have a double pump failure at Regency again, we go get it off the shelf, we put it in, and we don't incur the bypassing charges that we did last year.
We don't scramble.
I have a quick question on, if you go back to 589. So the cost associated with sending wastewater,
2,212,000.
That's what I meant, right?
Yeah, that's right.
okay, that's what we're projecting
Yes.
based on the increases that we're seeing. So what is the actual increase of that?
Well, that's really 15%. All of these numbers are 15, right?
Yeah, we figured in 15% on that increase. You want to know the difference between those, Kate?
No, it looked like a greater than 15% increase.
Oh, for that line item, it may be. Let me calculate it here quick.
We've got 1.9 to 2025. These year-to-date numbers are from,
They're 1 month behind us.
that we're tracking to do better this year on that.
You had the actual numbers in the packet that I gave you, that statement of revenues and expenditures. If you go to that line, you'll see where we're at year to date. I can pull it up.
This one here.
Nashville at the top.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that's because we seal coated our what do you call them? Sewer lines, yeah.
It's about a 25% increase, Kate.
Is that
But
just-
Some of that has to do with volume.
Yeah, if we're tracking to do better this year than last, and even with the increase, that number does seem kind of high.
I mean, I guess I was just expecting to see a 15% projected increase, but I'm sure there's a reason behind a 25% projected increase.
So we're gonna look at the revenues that we collected year to date and project them out to the end of the year, and then we added the 15% to it, right? Lindsay?
Well, yeah, and we're not talking, we took, what's on that line, 582, and the column for year-to-date, divided that by, I think it was 8.5, because when we did this was 8.5 months, multiplied that by 12, and then added the 15% to it.
Okay, gotcha.
And that's how we got the 22.
So we're not gonna do any better this year than we did last year as far as our expenses for.
Any less expense? No, the expenses are gonna be more.
No, I mean for 2026. So Bill was saying how it looked like because of the year-to-date number that's there, that we were gonna do better than we did in 2025 as
Oh.
far
It looks like it.
We may.
It's 1.9 and 2.25. And this 1.2 is 8.5 months.
That's a 150,000 times 12.
we're pretty much right at the same mark.
Yeah, 1.8 is where we're likely going to come in for this year at the rate. You know, if that 1.2 is 8.5 months and we project that out, we'll be about 1.8 for the year.
Oh, I got 1.9.
Was 270,000, 15%.
I got 1915489 was my number.
How we will finish the current fiscal year.
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
And then plus the 15%. You're right to that number. Okay.
So comparing FY '26 budget for sewer operating expenses at 2.3, we're looking at 3 million this year. So it's about a $700,000 increase or 23% increase. And again, there's some one-time money in there. You know, if we zero those out,
Was one-time money plus we changed the way that we're paying employees too.
a little bit, yeah. This has more wages in it than it has in years past because we got some others appropriated to it. When Jason looked at our cost allocation plan, he suggested some changes from the way he's dispatching the guys to do sewer. So if you take the one-time money out, it's only a 16% increase from current year to proposed. With that money back in, it's a 23% increase. So bottom line then, for water and sewer on expenses, you have to go to the top of page 18. No, I'm sorry, top of page, in the middle of page 19. Get it right. So we're looking at 6.4 million in water and sewer expenses. And of that, there's 419,000 and some odd change for one-time expenses. Compared to FY '26, which was 9.8. But current year, we had budgeted a large dollar amount for a project. Didn't we, Tressa?
Yes, there was transfers, there was a lot of projects, there was the valve exercise machine, there was a lot of things in there. And again, when we're budgeting, we're predicting that we're gonna do this, doesn't mean it's gonna happen, which means at the end of the year, the actuals falls down into your fund balance, what we don't spend.
So it's actually a decrease over the current budget, but, you know, again, we had more
expenses.
capital expenses in the current fiscal year, some of which we didn't do. But anyway, water revenue at 6.5, sewer expenses. Now, I changed, this did math before I messed with the numbers. We added, I think we left that calculation in there at 17% for revenue, increased revenue. Let me go back and double check that. Yeah, let me change that quick back to 15.
I think you did 115.
Well, it's easier to write the
Oh.
if you do 115%, that way you don't have to.
Add it up, right?
Yeah, okay.
So this includes pay raises for those employees on that list?
It does, according to the salary study. Cost of living of 3%, and then pay increases pretty much match what Lily found in the salary study. And that's what that comes out to. So, I don't know, after reviewing this, if you guys are set on what you want to do for water and sewer increases on our rates. We know what they're going to be for our wholesale purchase and our wholesale sewer disposal. We don't purchase 100% of our water. With our 2 wells we're running, we're covering how much, Jason? 100%?
16% on average.
But we might be able to get well 5 back online.
Correct, we're just waiting for PFAS samples to come back.
If they come back under levels, we can put it back online, which will help. And then,
But the 16% is 3 wells or 4 wells?
Two.
So you're only talking about still being in the low 20s.
Correct, yes, sir.
but, Mark Sheeran, with the Harvest Creek subdivision, when he platted that out, there's a 1 acre lot out there that, he's going to convey to the town for a future well site. He's in the process of having that done. And then we have our well company going to do a geological assessment of it and see. Jason's got some concerns with that lot, so there's why that subdivision is without sewer, so everybody's got a septic system, and they're in the back, which is close to where this lot is. So does it make sense to put a well?
No. Close to the toilet.
Well, we'll see, if our well's at a depth that's sufficient.
Yes. CJ from ARM, says he thinks it might can work. But we're gonna be close to the state regulations, I guess you would say.
That was part of the reason that we did that whole thing and we waived the sidewalk requirements, knowing that we were gonna annex in and have a well site.
We didn't know, so we,
Right. Is
Like
there-
Jason said, it meets the guidelines, NCD.
Well, if they're running this way and the water a different way.
We gotta be 100 foot from any kind of leach field.
Yeah.
So CJ seems confident that there's a site on that lot that's gonna be 100 foot away from everything.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
But it all depends if the geology is right. Now, we're not gonna put a test well down. If it does, we'll have to budget some money in a project fund for a new well, which will include a test drill. And, if you drill a new well, you wanna make sure it produces water. If it doesn't, like the one we found at the West Water Tower, that one's 800 something feet. Nobody knew it was there. Nobody currently on staff. And when I got a hold of Jamie Baines, he said, well, I was told when I got here, they just walked away from it because it didn't produce enough water.
Crazy.
So
So does it?
it didn't then, I don't know, we didn't
So
stick
we gotta
it.
check it again.
We haven't stuck the pump down
We
yet.
just,
But we haven't done anything yet. We've got a company coming up.
Lake Valley Well Company's coming to abandon it.
abandoned.
Yes, sir.
Do we want to test it first before abandoning it, or is it just too much money?
It wouldn't be useful now with the retention pond where it is.
Okay, so it
We're
makes sense
we're too late to the game.
okay.
Do you have to go there?
And
But y'all keep on.
realistically, it would
I'll
cost
see you
us
next week, I
both
can stay all
money,
day next
right?
week.
To get enough wells online to be self-sufficient?
It would, I think 13 to 16 wells to get us where we need to be. That's acquiring the land, engineering, digging the well. You're gonna need more personnel, there's gonna be more electricity, there's gonna be more chemical costs. So you could have 2 or 3 people that just did that full time, just check wells every day. So there's, I think a couple more wells, 3 to 5 more, probably in the next 10 years is definitely gonna help us out. But I don't think we'll ever get totally self-sufficient.
Okay. But as far as putting more wells on board for the next 10 or so years,
Correct. I would be in favor of that along with the water tower for water storage.
And with our law operating well, I don't see us ever getting rid of our connection with Rocky Mountain. It is,
Well, we've already signed the contract with them, it goes out how many years? 20
well,
years.
it's another 10 with 3 renewals after that, so it's 40.
We had the well on Cook Road that we dug that was not useful.
Right.
So, I mean, you're at the mercy.
We need to hold down with a stick. Check
And
it
they
out.
know it.
Well, if you guys want to check out page 1 of revenue, we can start with the general fund revenue. Discuss the 130, page 1.
Well, before we go there, which way are y'all leaning? So we know how to project the numbers.
Are you good with the 15%?
I think we have to do at least 15%.
We got to do at least 15.
But with,
I don't like raising fees at all, but I sure thinking 17%, to be honest with you, because, I mean, we've been eating it for the last couple of years.
So 17,
And 15 is what it's a wash. I mean,
17
So what are we
against,
gonna do with the following year? And then the following
You
year,
just have
just
to-
do 17.
next year we might have to do, like she said, we do 10 if we see that we're going in the right direction. But if he does that water tower, all that money is gone.
But like
Yeah.
Kate said, if we do a water tower,
I would
maybe you
wanna
want to look
finance
at a
it.
loan.
Yeah, I would want to
So-
finance that.
But the difference between 15 and 17 is like $2 a month for somebody. That's not at the end of the world, to be honest with you.
That's what I said. It's not over $10. So
You want the 3% the following year.
I would say a low percentage, like the 10, 10, and 10 puts us in the hole the first year, maybe gets us back a second year, and then potentially gets us really far out the third year. The 15 covers us completely, or if we do 17, it covers us completely, and it gets a little bit away. But then I would, whether or not we have an increase from Rocky Mount in years to come, I think we need to do at least a small increment of what you're talking about, just so that there's not so much sticker shock another 3 years from now.
Right.
But just tiny increments, whatever it is that we need to be able to prepare for that.
Well,
Right.
if we do the 15, we can justify that, and the public will understand that too, because everybody knows what Rocky Mount is doing to us. So if we do 15%, we really we don't have to justify it to the public because they already know it. So we take the 15%, and then I would like to go a little bit for the following 3 years, whether we go 10 or whether we go 5 or 3, that would hopefully keep us ahead of the game and have a little bit, not squirrel away, but prepared for the following years. I'm willing to go 15 and 5 every year. 5, 5,
What are your
5.
thoughts, Kagan?
Yeah, I concur with Larry, because it's already gonna be a sticker shock, even though they know. You know, some things you already know, but it's still a sticker shock, because it's a nuance. So I would prefer to do the 15% and maybe small increases after that. Teresa, I think I heard you say that would be a $10
the
for a
17.
residential customer.
Even the 17 is less than $10.
Okay, okay.
Just thinking about when we keep our ratio is under 50%, which is the depreciation ratio that we're talking about. If we're not putting any money into our infrastructure, but how can we put it in there if all we're doing is just staying afloat?
Matching Rocky Mount, exactly.
It's not there, so unless you just
Yeah,
report it,
yeah.
they're gonna get it.
It's not gonna be easy either way, but the 15%, with a little bit of education. I mean, they know it, but you still put it out there.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
But then if you go 15 and 10, then you got to justify that 10. Everybody gonna be, well, damn, you just hit me with 15, then you gonna give me 10 right behind it. So,
Right, that's why I'd almost rather do 17 and then do a lower,
well, if we do 17 up front,
yeah.
they say, wait a minute, we didn't get hit by Rocky Mount, but for 15, why you sticking
Yeah, but the
another
last
2 on
2,
it?
3 years, we
Let's-
got raised
let's
and
do
we didn't go up.
15 would justify itself.
Right.
The public is already aware of that. Let's
Right.
do the 15 and then do the increments of 5.
But to Bill's point, we didn't go up in the last 3 years, and so
But
if
they
we
don't
were
care.
going to have an increase anyway, and now Rocky Mount has taken away our ability to do that
But
increase.
the public don't care what we didn't increase in the last couple of years. They don't give a shit about that.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the other thing that I mean, me and Jason and we were speaking with Hope from the School of Government is the level of services that we offer. We're running our trucks, you know, we're running our trucks, our equipment, like every single week offering these extra services and, you know, stuff gotta be replaced. Otherwise, we cannot provide the service. We get a lot of calls about trash truck or the leaf truck broke down. I mean,
I just don't
Have
want
to
to
fix
have
it.
another Brooklyn Boulevard happen again where we gotta shut the whole town down because we've not made infrastructure improvements.
That's, I
So,
understand.
I mean, that's fresh, it's on everybody's mind. We had to shut the entire town down to make a repair that shouldn't have to done that.
Well, subsequent years after this one, if you do 15%, and we're gonna have some assistance from the school of government with Hope and her crew to advise us what our rates probably need to be. And again, the unknown is what our wholesale rates are gonna be. And we're not gonna know that until 60 days before they change them.
Your 5-year plan is how much, how many millions?
I don't know, remember right off top, but it was several,
5+, right?
like 8 or 9.
8 million.
Yeah, it was like 4 million just for the
1.3.
water tower.
Well, yeah, likely we're gonna have to borrow, and, you know, there's justification for that again. You know, you want your current customers to be paying their share of the improvements, and that's the way you do it, is with borrowing. Now, that doesn't make sense to everybody. Some folks think, you got it in the bank, why are you borrowing it?
But to your point, we can borrow for the water tower, but we can't borrow for fixing our
Correct,
underground
you could borrow for a structure of the water tower, but
Right.
to replace an AC or
You
2-inch
can't borrow for-
galvanized
you
pipes.
can't borrow for it.
you can't
Right.
borrow for that.
So that's money that we do need to have in the bank.
You said it's 200 some thousand we're putting into it at 15%.
And 15%.
236. And then-
My suggestion is
What's
the 17. I think we should do 17, but again, that's y'all's decision.
Trust us at the front desk. She's
I
on the
have,
front
I have
lines.
actually talked to citizens. They know what's going on in Rocky Mount, obviously because it's all over the news. But we can't just blame it on Rocky Mount because really we have our own infrastructure issues as well. So at the end of the day, I just think that would be. I just know that I've worked with them up at the front, and I've talked to the customers. So I have mentioned it to a couple. Well, we might have an increase, and I explained it. So it's really just education. You're not gonna make everybody happy. So I think
We're taking a
17.
hit, might as well take a hit. I mean,
It's still less than 10. That's
I don't want to pay more. I'm a citizen, I don't want to pay more either. But it's realistic.
Well, you guys let us know what you want to do, and then we can probably stop here for this morning and pick the rest up the next week.
Well, I'll show you how I feel.
And next week is, next Wednesday?
The 20th, yeah.
And my concern, Tress, I hear exactly what you're saying, but I'm concerned with those who barely can make the payment.
Right.
And so when you, even though they know that what Rocky Mount's doing, when you add a 15%, you know, that's a huge jump on top of everything else that's going on in our society, as far as gas and food and inflation and medication. I'm talking about things that really are kitchen table issues for folks.
Right.
And,
Sure.
all of that. That's a big hit. So I think our job is try to minimize as much as we can and find somewhere that's a safe place to land, even if we gotta kind of redo some stuff the next year, you know? And then education, of course, marketing, however we describe it in municipalities, that's gotta be a big part of it as well, because yes, they know what Rocky Mount's done, but you know, when we do it, we can't just say, well, you know what, you know, we gotta do the education and marketing piece.
We understand that you said the increase would be an average of $10.
It's less than $10.
Less than
Whether it's
$10, okay.
15 or 17, it's less than $10.
It's less than $10. But everybody in this room can absorb that $10. But like what he just said, there's a lot of people in Nashville that cannot touch that $10 extra.
Yeah, but I mean,
we want to keep it as
I'm not
minimal as
sure
possible.
about, you know, like every year, I mean, I know I have some family members that get Social Security or disability, but they have gotten an increase every year, just like there's cost of living in our raises, so
Yeah, but
it
doesn't keep up with
It doesn't?
with the kitchen table items, insurance, food, gas, grocery, medication, those things that you gotta have.
Well, I mean, we just want to know so that we can go back and.
So start trying to make the
Right,
projections.
we make the projections because we just need to know from this, that's why we started with the water and sewer first, because that's gonna dictate what our general fund looks like, so. So is it 15?
I think they're split. I think you're gonna have to go.
We can
We're gonna
discuss
have to
again
come
next
down to a
Wednesday.
discuss this, because right now y'all are split.
Well, we'll leave the 15 in for now.
We're not split with the 15, I don't believe.
Well,
No.
15 or
We're
17.
I think
all
you're
at
split
least
between
15 or
15
more.
and 17.
Exactly. And I don't disagree with anything that anybody at this table has said.
Agreed.
I don't want it to be a greater hit every year, I guess. But I also think we need to prepare and we need to have things in place so that we don't have to shut the town down, so that we can fix things that need to be fixed. Yeah, so we can come back to it, but I think we're all at least 15.
Okay. Well, maybe that's a good stopping point for today. Got through presentation on our water and sewer rate, utilities, and the budget for those. You know, it's up to you guys if you want to keep going. We're more than happy to do so.
So we got, what, 30 minutes or less, right?
30 minutes, I need to leave it.
Can you touch on something else and cover it within the next 30 minutes?
I can, if you guys want to keep going.
Let's keep it going to 12.
I'm okay with that. To keep us from having a 12-hour meeting next week.
Right, I can't stand for it next week.
Boy, I don't think it'll be 12 hours. Then, like I said, go back to page 1,
Oh, man.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
we'll review the revenues quick for the general fund. So the total, a line item to point out, you know, our largest source of revenue in the general fund, property taxes. So what I have prepared here to talk about includes a 2-cent tax increase. We're currently at 59 cents, and it would take it to 61. And on the back of your budget sheet, the very last page, shows where we have been at with our tax rate from 2022 to present, and how much our taxable value, actual taxable value has been for 5 years, and what we're projecting it to be for FY27. And you know, the year in the middle there, FY25, you see we had a 25%. That was with reevaluation. So that was the year we went from 61 cents down to 59 cents and tried to keep it revenue neutral as best we could. So last year we did have some good increase in taxable value, about 4.8%. And
Not too bad.
I just had to take him to when we get his therapy.
we're on the very back page. And this year, Tress and I are proposing, or anticipating, we will have about 8.4% increase. Now, we've had between Harvest Creek and Cardinal Woods, we've had almost 100 new houses in the last year and a half. And that's why our taxable value has gone up. And of course, you know, we got the Shell building out there is taxable now, and just other improvements.
And we do have a couple of new houses at the subdivision behind Walmart, right?
That's full. Bradford Place is full.
It is full?
Yeah, it's full now. And there've been a few miscellaneous houses around town, right, John?
There is.
Yeah, Birchwood. Yeah,
Next door, right?
yeah.
We got one going,
Complex on the corner here.
and we got one going up on Body Street.
So, you know, at our collection rate, which has gone down a little bit, you know, if you remember seeing that one page in the audit, our collection rate's down from 9.8 to, what is it, 9.7535? So that's the calculation rate we used, was that. And that's going to bring in, at that collection rate, $3,622,364. So if you go back to the first page, that's the dollar amount we have right there.
What is that amount at 59? The 59 tax rate, what's that amount?
Just change it on your tax page, and it'll adjust it.
On the back sheet, if you go there. So at the bottom, I've calculated, you know, most houses in town are around the 185. Not all, there's some lower, some higher, but $185,500 is the taxable
No, I meant
value.
total now.
He asking if you were to take the 61 down, back to 59?
Oh,
Yeah,
So that 3.6 million,
would be what?
Right there, the 61. And M? And M.
yeah.
Yeah, change it.
3.5.
And then go back to the budget page and go down to the bottom of general fund, and then you'll see where we have to come up with the difference. Down to the totals.
It would put us under expenses by about 116,000 without a tax increase. All things staying the same,
I understand.
with the exception.
Well, what would 60 be?
We need to go under.
Absolutely, right. Considering this year.
We need to go under.
No, I understand.
0.6.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, 60.
So each penny on the tax is about 60,000. So we'd be 57,000. Do you see there, Bill? 57,380, and that's at 60 cents.
Okay.
Well,
Touch it.
we were at
Two
60,
trucks.
we were at 61 in FY 24,
Yes.
and then we went down, so, which we shouldn't have. And we gave the city some relief, but then I don't have any problem taking it back to 61.
And you know, citizens talking to me have said they wouldn't mind paying it as long as it keeps Nashville safe. That was their main concern in talking to me.
But on that last page, there's a calculation showing for each increase by 1 cent, how much more it would cost the homeowner. Like from going from 59 to 60, for a $163,000 valued house, that'd be $16 for the year more. If you go to 61 cents, it's $32 more. And I had a calculation there for 62. You can see what that is.
So you're okay with it here, but you're not okay with it on the water and sewer? I mean, I'm just curious.
I don't understand what you're saying.
You're okay with it on the increase?
we
on
all
the-
talked about water and sewer, and
Oh.
everybody's on board with 15% increase or more. But there was a split as to whether you go 15 to 17, because there's many expenditures in life that have gone up, and we're concerned about those that can't afford the increase to the 17. So Bill's question is, I guess,
Well, I just,
what's,
I mean, it's just more money out of pocket for somebody's household, so I'm just curious why some things are okay and some things aren't.
well, I think if we're gonna be doing an increase in both areas, that might be the difference maker.
Money out, money out.
It's kind of unavoidable.
Exactly.
Because one thing is one line item, but
Exactly.
manually another line item, it's kind of unavoidable.
Exactly.
My gas went up, but I still gotta have gas, but my medications went up, and I still gotta have that.
Medications, yes.
So I'm still juggling it, and I still don't want it to go up, but if you can give me a small incremental increase, I'll try to work with it, do the very best that I can, and cut something else out, you know? Because that's what people are juggling. That's exactly what people are juggling. But I hear your question. It's a viable question.
I understand where you're coming from,
Yeah.
but there's a need.
Yeah.
The $16 on line 7 on the last page, that's per month or per year?
That'd be per year.
For you.
Total taxes are like, on that first line, 995. And then you go up to 61 cents.
So the average house is gonna be $30 somewhere. Give or take.
Yeah, to go from 59 to 61 on the average value house would be $37.10
$2 some
A
month.
year,
per year.
per year.
Per year. And I think everybody knows, you know, we're only half of the property tax equation in Nash County. Nash County is the other half.
And then we don't know how long it'll be that.
Any speculation on if the county's gonna change?
I asked Stacy yesterday and she didn't say. We did talk about some other things. You know, there's legislation being proposed that's going to cap municipalities' ability to increase their tax rate. Now, I'm certain that that'll come with a, you know, an emergency, you know, you can if, and that if would probably be a referendum vote. But it wouldn't correspond to the time of setting your budget in November.
It would almost put small municipalities out of business, really, with that, and if they do away with this tax on food. And then in the Congress, they're talking about maybe not taxing anybody, property tax if they're over 65, that's rumored. So, you know,
Again, some of those pressures that are upon this budget, you know, I
we
didn't
haven't seen before.
Well, all those sound great till your trash isn't picked up,
Do you what?
till your trash isn't picked up.
Right.
I mean, it sounds great that you're gonna get less money, but there's no services.
Well, and-
Police don't come.
You know, ultimately, that's where things come down to, level of service.
Right.
So, going back to the general fund revenue on page 1. So that 3,622,000, that is with the 2-cent tax increase. That takes our tax rate from 59 cents to 61. And then our other big source of revenue in the general fund is sales tax, which is about 3/4 of the way down, $2,167,000.
Is that the one on food? What's the one?
It includes
Food.
sales
So we
tax,
lose some of that if they say no tax on food.
right, but by how much, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
There are 7 categories of sales tax in North Carolina, and food is one of them. And for Nash County, it's the 3rd largest of the 7. So, but not everything in that food category are qualifying groceries. The bill that was introduced would reduce the qualifying tax, sales tax on qualifying groceries. It would remove that 2%. That would go away. But I don't know how much of that is.
And the state hadn't even gotten a budget yet, have they?
Well,
We're getting closer.
But when were they supposed to have
They
it?
got one last night.
Are we
Yes.
ever gonna know that number of how much we're gonna lose until we do the audit? Like, does anybody have that information as far as like what we actually receive for that food portion?
Yeah.
Right. that's
Well,
also a
Stacy Schatzer told me yesterday, the county's league, I forget what it is, the county association, the Association of North Carolina Counties, which is similar to the League of Municipalities, they're doing a calculation, and I saw something, I got an email yesterday that the league is calculating that too, since that bill was
Okay,
introduced.
so we will know that shortly,
Yes.
maybe?
Well, sooner than later, I hope.
Well, online, you can find out how much each county gets from food, because I found
Yeah,
that.
you did.
Okay.
But it doesn't break it up
Right,
into
break it
each
down.
municipality, which I think is
County.
raised up based on population. Or
Partially.
Not from what you sell, but on your population,
Okay.
so, kinda.
So we didn't project any increase in sales tax, which may seem contrary to all the inflation we're paying.
Okay, so assuming we pass what this is, and just assuming, and then that, they pass that change, then we have to adjust our budget by potentially $200,000-300,000, correct?
It could be, it could be, I mean, it's really a wild card. We don't know now, we won't know by the time we adopt our budget if that legislation is going to get approved. Raz told me, he's been hearing this for 35 years, that they were going to do away with the 2-cent sales tax on qualifying groceries. And Stacy Schatzer told me that she had heard from the county association that this bill isn't likely to pass this session.
That'd be nice if it would.
Well, that's good news.
But again, you know, depending upon how much of that, food category is qualifying groceries, you know, if it's only 5-6%, it's gotta be more than that though. It would easily, I think, be at least 40%.
Well, yeah, it sounds great with the less grocery fees, but then
The
we
revenue
gotta
has
run
to be made up
town.
somewhere.
Yeah,
The revenue has to be made up somewhere, and with 0 suggestions as to where that revenue would come from,
Right.
it's kind of irritating.
it is.
I think it's kind of like last year with City Rock Amount. We did our budget without even knowing what they were increasing because they didn't do their budget until late June, and we had already adopted ours. So it's kind of just have to deal with it once it get here.
And legislative services have done an analysis on that bill to do away with the 2-cent sales tax on qualifying groceries. But it's a local sales tax. It only affects counties and cities.
Which transfers us to be the bad guys, where we have to increase our taxes to increase that revenue.
So the General Assembly
they're
can
trying to
pass that bill, and it has no impact on state revenues.
Oh, yeah, they're doing it.
So scrolling through all the general fund revenues, you get to about 3/4 of the way through page 3, and we have the total. There's one line highlighted in yellow. That's with transferring in from the enterprise fund 3% of revenue. And right now, that's based on 15%. So it allows us to bring $192,000 into the general fund, which is really nice. And then, you know, we got $416,000 in bringing from fund balance to help cover some of those one-time expenses that we'll get to when we get to the general fund expenses.
How much is in our fund balance?
For general fund, we're gonna trust this calculation. We'll start the year with about $5.3 million in unrestricted fund balance for the general fund. And I have these for you if you want them. Next time around, we'll have them in a different form where it makes a little more sense. But what we're looking at, general fund revenue at $10,144,000. It's about a 6% increase over the current year budget, or $606,000 more. But again, that's with a 15% increase in water and sewer rates, and bringing 3% of water and sewer revenues over to the general fund, and a 2-cent increase in property tax.
And is this estimate any growth in new houses?
Yeah, we got, if you go back to your last page, Bill, it shows what we're looking at for taxable. We're looking at an 8.4% increase in taxable value.
Wait, what page?
Was that?
Oh, it's the last page.
Oh, last page.
Yeah.
I saw that.
The last page.
But where's that number here?
It's built into, on the very front page, sales, it's built into that
Oh,
3.6 million.
Yeah. 5021.
Yeah. So then continuing on with revenues.
Is that a conservative number?
We estimated it because honestly, the numbers that we get from Nash County, it's no way. It's no way.
What was the percentage of new houses we got this year?
Well, on that back page, we had a 4% increase. And that was actual.
Yeah,
So
that's
we're trying to, we think it's gonna be double?
Well, you know, that included only probably 15% of nearly 100 new houses that are gonna be on this this year.
And I think our collection rate is gonna go up next year, which is gonna change that percentage because we are doing really good with.
Yeah, we've always consistently been at 98.
It's trickling down because we're not collecting all of our property taxes, which with us partnering with Cypress, we're getting payments.
Oh yeah, we're getting results.
So that's gonna increase our.
This one individual, I don't know who it is, had 3 different properties where they hadn't paid the taxes. Then Zell got it, and all of a sudden they went and paid all I paid every one of them.
Attorney
When you do
Leonard.
But
stuff.
then it's a shame you have to do that.
Yeah, it is, but it cost them. But that's what stupidity do.
But that percentage should go up, which would then, you know, we'll see.
Increase
we'll see
revenues.
yeah, increase revenues,
But we put it for what our current collection rate is, which is 97.35%.
And I think it was at 97.4746, and it's just going the wrong way, so.
Bottom of the page 3, we have our MSD revenues for our municipal service district. There isn't a whole lot of change in there. That tax brings in about $44,000. We got some interest. Sean's got some banner sales in there. And then we're gonna use some fund balance. And when we get to the project side for the MSD, you're gonna see the Downtown Strong Advisory Board we got right now is really excited about doing a bunch of small things
That's great.
for beautification, for enhancement of our downtown, and for some marketing, which is very nice.
Well, you may have mentioned this already, Randy, but based on what we're looking at now, what's gonna be the bottom line get to the fund balance?
For general fund, yeah,
Four
So that
sixteen?
is gonna bring us down to almost 9 million, right?
Right.
In unrestricted fund balance.
yes, we're at 5.3 now.
It brings down to four something.
What does that do as far as like percentages of operating costs?
Well, we always want to be at about 50% of fund balance on hand. We may be just a little lower than that, but well above the LGC, which is only 20%.
Yeah, it's 20% for the
But it's
other.
lower than that, whatever it was crazy low.
You just gotta keep, I'm telling y'all I'm working at front counter and just the services that we're providing, that we'll really like, if we don't replace our stuff, that, I don't know, it's just stuff is breaking down. We had a lot of repairs this year that we didn't expect, so, I mean, we can't just go outside and get it out the tree. So, you gotta pay for it or they can't get services. One primarily we've been talking about is yard waste because our taxes, right, tax revenue pays for sanitation. Well, not sanitation, well, it's sanitation pays for sanitation. But that's not including yard waste or bulk pickup. And we have to dispose of those things to City Rock and Mount, which their rates went up, so that's another expense. So should we keep picking up every week?
Jason's got some ideas when we get into the expense on the sanitation budget. Maybe instead of rolling the leaf truck and the brush truck through every neighborhood every week, we back that up. Maybe we do it every other week when same day your recycling is. That's when your curbside collection is, or maybe we go once a month. We do it once a month.
Well, people can't cut down trees and put them in front of their house for us to pick up. We just shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah, and we've turned people away for that.
If a contractor does it, it's in our ordinances that we don't pick it up. But if Mr. Taylor was to cut down a tree and he puts it in the proper lengths, then essentially we would pick it up.
See, I
covers
think
the
if
whole
it's like
block.
branches and things like that, or maybe
I
like,
just
a
got
tree this
I
far
just got a
around.
bush out there, man. I told her, I'm a bush yesterday, not a tree.
It's not,
And as far as bulk pickup, we don't charge,
Currently, we don't.
well, we need to. I
We
just
do,
had,
like,
I just had to pay in Greenville-Fin to pick up something for a school.
and we don't mind dropping off, but there's no place, like we have a bulk pickup that's sitting on the side of our house. There's no place where we can go to drop off any sort of, like we used to be able to use the drop-off center on 58.
Convenience
They will
centers.
not let you in
They
there
don't want you.
unless you're county.
You pay a fee.
Right, well, they wouldn't let us in no matter what.
No, that's it.
You have to
I
go.
think you
You gotta
gotta
go to
tag.
the
You
health
only
department,
buy it
get a
like once
tag.
per year, right?
Right.
Right.
But it's good for the whole year.
Right, but I couldn't go now and say I wanna go buy it. It was like a specific time of the
Yes.
year that you had to go.
Yes, because it
Right.
ends, because they change the color
Exactly.
at the beginning of the year.
So you're kind of, I wouldn't mind paying whatever it costs to do that, for the convenience of not having to go and
Right.
buy a tag
I
at
think you
one
can go
time.
get one now.
Well, we shouldn't
You
have
can
to
get
buy a
one
tag
now, but it's
they
only
county
good,
tax.
it's not good for the whole,
Councilman
a whole
Yeah.
year. It's
An
not a-
issue that we just, me and Randy just run into with Nash County is TVs, disposing of TVs. A citizen in Nashville cannot go to the Nash County Disposal Center and dispose of a TV or electronic.
Right.
So what we're gonna probably propose is a small incremental fee, because we will have to pick those up, store them, and have an outside company come in and dispose of them properly. So those are the little caveats that we're running into now, with our disposal of TVs, bulk waste, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think
And we looked up other towns, like some towns does spring clean, fall clean, like they do it twice a year, and you have to just have the stuff out there, and we just do one time, it's 2 expenses a year. And then the other was maybe once a month, and then if you wanted something picked up, you had to pay for it. So we could
that's a
still
good
offer
idea.
them
Do once a
something.
month and then pay for it, yeah.
I think it is.
I mean, but
good.
Jason, your guys, they could be doing other things, but
Yes.
literally from
Well, if they
7
come
to
out and
4,
pick up trees
they're
on the
just
sidewalk.
trash,
And it's every Friday.
yeah.
Well, we need to look at that.
And it's
get
about
at
this,
that.
about this thick of people calling, can you pick up, one item, so that's gas, that's a employee, when you think about how much it costs, it's,
And the wear and tear and the diesel fuel on the vehicles going around the entire town every Friday.
yeah.
What did you say, Jason?
The garbage truck going around every Friday around the entire town, like Trista said, there's a stack of bulk item pickups. And it could be something small as a little rug or a little vanity, or it could be a whole, truckload full of stuff where someone moved out of a house.
I don't think we should pick those up either.
I don't either. We
I
don't
think
have
it
to
should be
split
a fee associated if
it.
somebody,
Guidelines.
cleans out their whole house and puts it on the side of the road, like, just,
You mean a landlord?
right, like a landlord,
let me
I think
ask you about that.
that's a lot for them to dispose of.
I had a couple of people that did that midnight moving
Uh-huh.
and didn't know they were going. Good job, Mom. Yeah, midnight moving. They moved at night and took two rooms of furniture and stuck it out on the street.
Oh, well, yeah, that's
And
already,
then I've got to pay somebody to go pick it up. Well, I can't recoup it from them for it. I didn't get the rent, so what make you think they're gonna pay for pickup?
it's just some ideas, but Jason, I mean, your guys are the ones out there working, but
We need to
It's-
know something.
we can,
Possibly
Figure out-
running the lease machine only from,
April.
say, September to April, to cut down on the wear and tear on that going through the summertime. There's a lot of alternatives that we can look at to try and make our equipment last longer, so we're not replacing it so often.
But
Or
the
it's not
machine picks
being,
up grass too.
sir,
Grass clippings picks up too.
correct.
But not maybe do it over the winter. We suspend.
We'll suspend it during the summertime.
That's when the grass gets picked up, yeah.
All right, but mainly the leaf machines for, vacuuming up all the leaves that get raked out to the,
But it also does the grass.
it does, yes, sir.
All things to keep in mind. We had gone through water revenues, which are Fund 30 already. That's on page 4. The bottom of page 4 are our stormwater. We're anticipating a little increase there because we have more homes. And so we're going from 145 to 155, about $10,000 more in projected revenue from that. And then we have some fund balance money from our stormwater fund coming into this budget. And that would be for the Body Street Storm Sewer Intake Project that council approved the engineering agreement for last time. So about $110,000 increase in revenue, but that's from that transfer in, and about $10,000 more in storm sewer fees for $246,480.
Where you at?
Right here on Fund 40,
Page 4.
at the bottom of page 4 on revenues. Down by your thumb. Most likely.
I thought we were, but you're saying numbers I didn't see.
Yeah, me too.
Because you said 110, I don't see, and you said 144.
Well, you won't see the 110. I mean,
Okay.
it goes from 145 to 155.
Okay.
There's about a $10,000 increase there. And we're bringing in this 91,000 from reserves so we can do that Body Street Storm Sewer project. So the difference between current year and proposed is about 101,000. Any questions on that? Jump down quickly to Powell. We're projecting a little more, about $5,000 more in our PAL allocation from 210,000 to 215. And we're gonna bring in some fund balance so that, when we get to the expense side, we had planned to overlay Cross Street and part of Birchwood this fiscal year. We didn't get some other projects underneath done in time, so we're gonna reappropriate and rebudget those for next year. And then,
So the 400,000 that we were bringing up earlier from fund balance is in addition to the 300, that's, we're at in more.
yeah, it's a different fund though. Those are general funds. These are PAL funds. A different bucket of money.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just shine some light on that. We budget $400,000 in power bill funds for this fiscal year. The job is not gonna get done. All that money then falls back into fund balance. We're just reappropriating
Just
this
move
year.
it back here.
Because I guess the time, I don't know, it's something about the time of the year when they're able to do sidewalks and things of that nature. So it's just probably not gonna happen this fiscal year.
We're gonna try to finish something.
We're just reappropriating really the same money.
The other
Over
street
again.
project we want to do is when Essex Road gets finished with its new sewer system, overlay that. So those would be the three streets.
Did they get started on Essex?
All the materials there.
Is there?
Yes, sir.
That's really it for revenues. We did have a transfer, that's a 263,000 from water sewer into general fund balance, so. Total revenues, we're looking at a little less than the current year, but that's because we're not spending as much fund balance on projects. $17,703. And I have an error in my spreadsheet that I can't find, that Trici's gonna help me, of $2,003.
But the total budget is that amount. That's the correct amount. My spreadsheet is right. Randy just has a formula we gotta work on. We'll fix
What's the
it.
total budget?
17 million.
17 million?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it's down a little bit but the current year you see here of 19 million, that includes our budget amendments. I think what we adopted was like 16.
Right.
We've had some budget amendments. And most of that was at Nash County, $1.5 million for sewer manhole lining.
That's surprising, it's not any higher than that.
Infrastructure.
Yeah. So we are at noon.
Well, at least you're giving us some information. It's gonna be a tough year, but I just pray we can get it done and treat our people fairly and our citizens fairly too, but we really do have to look at the services we provide and just be prepared.
So we'll get into general fund expenses and the other funds next week then. And in the meantime, if anybody's got questions, please feel free to reach out.
And if y'all want, since y'all have the package, y'all can kind of review through the expenditures. And if you have questions, maybe just write it and we can, it would save us some time instead of going line by line if y'all have anything that y'all want
And
to
I think
discuss.
the water presentation today was very helpful.
I think so too.
And I love our new sidewalks.
Yes, thank you very much.
We're not finished, but
Yeah.
But
Yeah, quite a bit
they
done.
look good.
Well, when is, and I guess it's, I don't know if it's our contract or what is DOT's contract. When they gonna fix the turn coming up from Hardest and then making the right turn on Bond Street? When they gonna fix that corner?
Only thing I've heard is after the Blooming Festival.
when they do the mill and overlay
Yeah, when they do the mill and overlay.
on
We
the
did-
64 bridges.
Randy was successful in getting them to come out during the Blooming Festival and put some coal patch around all the handicap walks. We had to touch it up a little bit. We put some pink paint just to make
I
it more
thought we did
visible.
that.
Yeah, we touched it up and made it a little bit better, so.
Well, it's supposed to be in the fall, and then it's supposed to be in the spring, and now it's gonna be summer.
Well, remember, we busted our tail to get the water lines on that section done before. Oh, it's almost 2 years ago we did that.
That's what I remember.
Yeah, that corner needs to be fixed bad. Gonna turn somebody's stuff up too.
Oh, I'm sure it has to, somebody's doing all that by now. So,
Well, any other questions? If not, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
There's a second.
All in favor?
Favor?
Aye.